What's going on? What's going on? It's another steamy Sunday. We're gonna do some programming. Try to beat the heat, sit in our air conditioning. Hope you're in your air conditioning if it's hot where you're at. Otherwise, I hope you're on a hammock, maybe, sipping an ice cold mango smoothie. Something of that nature, you know? It's really quite hot. I hear there's supposed to be a storm coming up. That's exciting. Some hurricanes. I hope that you're safe from hurricane where you're at. I hope you're in general feeling good, feeling happy. I'm doing pretty good, I think. I think the heat really gets to me, you know? So here's what I'm doing to beat it. Check this out. You see this? It's a big jug of water, and what is it filled with? Cucumbers. Cucumbers, a naturally hydrating food. Add it to your water. Tastes really delicious. So that's what I'm trying to do to beat the heat, as well as, you know, sitting in an air conditioning room. So that helps a lot as well. But today we're gonna get back into it. You know, we're gonna keep working on our React. We're gonna keep working on our React skills. We're gonna keep working on TypeScript, weaving it together, weaving it into protobufs, protobuf APIs, HTTP, protobuf APIs, CockroachDB, Go, you know, all the things together. We're doing all of it. We're doing all of it, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think today, I mean, look, there's a bit of a difference between today and other days. Today, I don't quite know where life is gonna take me on this stream, or where the stream is gonna take me, I should say, you know? I feel like I'm a little bit like, I just wanna kind of survey what we've done, you know? I wanna survey what we've done, think of new ideas, start single node. I wanna just kind of play around a little bit and see what's up, you know what I mean? Because I finished the main goal that I had, which is to make this thing that can automatically kill sessions from the UI, which is so cool. Let me show it off. So look at this. I'm gonna open a couple of windows, couple SQL shells here. By the way, does anybody use Alacrity? I just switched to Alacrity from iTerm because somebody said it was good, and I'm just playing with it, but I'm a little new to it, so don't know my key bindings, you know, things are a little different, but check it out. You know, if I have some session here, maybe with a transaction, one over here with a transaction, maybe a statement, we'll sleep in this transaction for a little while. If I go to my, oh man, see, I don't like how it has multiple instances in the command tab. That's kind of nasty. Oh, you can't see that. That's not on your screen. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Alacrity, I'm still getting used to it. That's the point. But check this out. I can go to the web UI here, and I can see I got my sessions. They have ages. You know, they've got transactions with ages, queries with ages, memory usage. I've got the query that's actually happening right now. I can click to go to sort of a summary view for that query. And then most importantly, I can terminate these things, which I think is actually super dope and a major value add. Watch this. You see down here, lower left corner, there's something stuck. Right now, you know, it's just doing a sleep. I told it to do a sleep, but let's assume it was some like stuck, terrible query and I wanted to terminate it. Well, my friends, easy to do that now with this query terminate button. Well, bam. Well, bam. It's dead. It's canceled. Look at that. I'm very satisfied by this. I think it's very satisfying. Let me turn this music down. I think it's getting a little bit loud. I feel like I'm just yelling over the music. Not a good look. Not a good feel. How's that? That's a little bit better, I think. But yeah, so you can terminate stuff, you know. This is ugly. I don't know really how to make it look good, but that's I'm gonna ask for help on that. I don't know how to make things look good. It's not what I'm doing right now. Maybe I should learn that too at some point. CSS, styling, figuring out how to design things so that they don't look like programmer art or whatever, but that's not today. And the other thing that you could do is you can actually terminate an entire session if you feel like it. So if I had some other command, pg sleep, whatever, I can actually go ahead and terminate the entire session like this. And then what you'll get is error, driver, bad connection. Everything is sort of dead, and that's great. That's very great. So I mean, the question is really where to go from here, you know? I can click into this session view. I added this as well. So you can see, you know, for a given session, what's it up to, you know? That's what the point of this view is. You can see that it's got some attributes. Here's when it started. Here's the gateway node that it connected to. Right now, this cluster just has one node, so there's only one gateway node, and this is it. Got the address of the client. This is just an IPv6 thing, but presumably if this is happening over the web, you'd get that IP address too over the web. You got your memory usage. There's no memory being used right now because, well, we didn't do anything memory intensive. For the transaction, there's a bunch of stats too. Hey, Jonathan Peter Wu, thank you for that follow. Why are my alerts not working? What's the deal with that? Why are my alerts not working? I feel that Streamlabs is letting me down right now. I got my Streamlabs open and it doesn't see your follow. So I can only assume that Streamlabs is having a hiccup. Maybe it will come back to life soon. Maybe I'll restart this little Streamlabs app and see if that helps things. I don't like it when my alerts don't work, you know, that's so frustrating. Huh. Well, I don't see you, Jonathan Peter Wu. In any case, thank you. I appreciate your follow, even though it didn't make an alert. I'll try to fix that. Anyway, point is, you got some stats too on the transaction. You got your start time. You got the number of statements executed within the transaction. You got whether or not we have any retries in the transaction, which is often the thing that trips people up. If the transaction retries, that can be a big source of latency that's not obvious. It's not directly connected to a user's actions. You have whether the transaction was implicit or not. So that's whether I asked for, you know, a begin explicitly here. That's what that's about. Is it a read-only transaction? You got all these stats. As of system time means you can ask from data in the past, essentially. You got the priority of the transaction. You got all sorts of things. You got the memory usage of the transaction as opposed to the memory usage of the session. I feel like that could be useful for people sometimes. And then finally, for the statement stats, you have some information too. You got the start time, whether or not it's distributed, and that's it for the time being. I thought about adding memory usage of a statement too, but I thought that was it's kind of duplicative of this transaction one. I didn't think it was that necessary, but I mean, now that I think about it, it might be good to have in there too, because otherwise maybe you wouldn't be able to tell whether, you know, the transaction is sort of currently, whether the max memory that it used was caused by the transaction or more by the current, like some previous statement or the current statement. You know, right now, probably not too possible to figure that out. You sort of have to guess. So maybe, I mean, that's a quick thing. I could add that because I already have the pattern sort of set up. Yeah, so to do that, we just go and we re-edit these proto buffs that we've been messing with. So if I go to my status.proto, which is where all these fields are defined. See, I've got these alloc bytes and max alloc byte things, but these are inside of a session. And I think I've got one inside of the transaction as well, txn info. But I don't think that I have one inside of the active query. And the question is, should I have one? Why not? I think the answer is probably just why not. There's no harm to adding this extra information. It should just make things a little bit better for everybody. I have to say that this alacrity thing is frustrating. So you can't see right now, but like, since I have a bunch of different alacrity terminals open, there's like a bunch of different icons in my command tab, which is like, why? iTerm, I like how there's just a single icon. I wonder if there's a preference for that, but it's kind of driving me crazy. And this little thing alone is going to make me switch back to iTerm, I feel like. All right, so if I run make protobuf, it's going to regenerate my protobuf headers after I've made that protobuf change. And then we can add the missing stats, I think. It shouldn't be so hard. I think really we just need to add a spot to write to these elements here. And I think where that lives is... Where does that live? I think what I'll do is I'll search for where we edit the sessions kind of active bytes and stuff like that, because it should be very close to where we would add it for the query. Here's where we set our active queries, and here's where we add information to them. So here we just need to add some fields. So we're going to add our alloc bytes, and our max alloc bytes. And as for the actual values, I think that essentially what we need is a memory monitor that's bound to the query. Now I'm a little bit nervous because I'm realizing that we might not actually have one of those. The only thing that we might have is that transaction one. Maybe this is why I didn't do it in the first place. So essentially what's going on is that you see, this is where we're setting these memory usage statistics on the transaction. And the quote unquote memory monitor that we get these statistics from is this one. And this one lives under this thing called transaction state, which is in the sort of context of the transaction. The thing is that I don't think we actually make a fresh memory monitor for every query. I think we just reuse this transaction one, which could be a big problem for us. I think right here is kind of where we set up the statements, the monitor that the statement's going to use for like all of its stuff. So I guess I actually take back this idea. I think we could do better. You know, we could say here, we could essentially say, instead of setting the monitor on this thing called eval context, which is the memory monitor that it gets actually used for the execution engine, we would make a fresh one and reset it or something and associate it to the, I don't think it's worth the effort. I think we could do it, but I just don't feel like it's worth the effort. So I'm actually gonna roll this back. It was a cool idea. And like I said, this stream is gonna be just trying to figure out what to do next, kind of. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we were considering, this is driving me crazy. The fact that you can't command tilde between these windows is like almost a deal breaker, I want to say, for this Alacrity thing. Who knows how Alacrity works? Alacrity, Mac, multiple windows. That's exactly the question, right? No, it doesn't seem right. Spawn new instance, but that just makes an entire new program. This is a total rabbit hole, you guys, so I'm sorry, but I want to make this figure. I see Alacrity actually creates a new instance instead of supporting multiple windows within the same instance. There's an open issue for it. It's called support multiple windows with 289 thumbs up. I'm going to add a thumbs up to that because really I want this to be happening for me. Really, I need this to be happening for me, and it's not. Alacrity, why won't you fix this? It's from 2017. This very much seems like something that should be fixed, you guys. And 1,000 comments. This is so typical. You see an open source project that's really popular. There's some like obvious feature request that has not been touched for the past multiple years. I feel like it happens all the time. Oh, that's a bummer. It might mean that I actually am going to just kind of just switch to iTerm, you know, switch right back to iTerm. Just in this very moment, because it's driving me absolutely mad. Yeah. All right, whatever. This is a total tangent. Absolute tangent. Absolute giant tangent. The main point is that we've got to figure out what kind of important stuff to add to this UI. Right? What kind of actions do I want to be able to take on a statement like this? I want to figure out how many resources it's using at some point. Which that we were looking at adding something like that a couple of streams ago. It's possible that it's time to get back to that. It's possible that it's time to get back to that. I have a branch sitting somewhere that kind of sets things up so we start returning more information about. I mean, one problem is that like you'll still only get that information at the very end, you know, after the query is finished executing. And the reason for that is that Cockroach is a distributed system. And so in order to get information back from remote nodes, you have to send it. And so if you wanted to have some information like, oh, here's the amount of memory that was used across the whole query, here's the amount of CPU that was used across the whole query, you would need to actually send bytes representing those quantities from other nodes, and that's expensive, sort of. So I guess we sort of want to avoid sending random information like that over the wire if we can help it. I don't really know. But I mean, you can send it at the end, and that's what we sort of do now. And I wanted to just do more of it, sort of like on a per operator basis. How much time was spent in each operator? How much memory was used by each operator? And just those things alone. Oh, and how much disk was used by each operator, right? Like how many bytes were read. And we added something like that a little while ago. We said, so if I do for another example, if I do, for example, select count star from A, which has 100,000 rows in it, then I go to this page and I click select from A, I see that in execution stats, I see that there were a mean of 100,000 rows read and a mean quantity of 11.6 megabytes read from disk. Right? So that's neat. But I suppose what I really want is a lot more than just this. You know, I also want maybe mean memory used or something like that, mean CPU time used. I sort of have that. That's here, the CPU time stuff. 72 milliseconds of running, 20 milliseconds of planning. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose there's like a couple of other interesting things, right? We could figure out which nodes are currently involved in the statement. Is that useful information to know? You know, you could say for this given statement, a list of all the nodes that are participating in the execution. I feel like that's actually pretty useful to know. I wonder if that's easy to figure out. So the idea would be, what's up, Ronan? Celeste, how's it going? Hey, Eric, how are y'all doing?
Data banks throughout the world.
Yo, I'm on Twitch Bura. Thanks for that follow. Can I run and explain for the statement? Yeah, so we do actually have that already set up. So if you check over here, this is the page that sort of aggregates information about each statement. And this does actually have an explain. So if I look at my earlier example, there's a select count. And if I click logical plan, this is essentially the explain. It's like, yeah, I mean, this is kind of a bad example. It doesn't have that many cool stats or anything on the inside, but if it were a bigger plan with a more complicated thing, there would be more information inside of the plan. I like the idea of having sort of what nodes are participating. I feel like that could be pretty clutch information when you're trying to like debug what's going wrong. So I'm gonna look at adding that. If I go over to where we actually populate this information on a per statement basis, getting rid of this experiment that we did earlier that didn't really work out. We really should be able to figure out based on, but we don't have it, I guess, in this little struct here, this query meta thing, but we should really be able to add a little bit more information about the execution to query meta. Right now we just have this flag, is it distributed or not? But I think that we should be able to set a little bit more information about it. I guess this is where we sort of set this information up when we're running dispatch to execution engine. You know, it's possible that we actually set these fields before the physical planning goes on, which would be troublesome, because that would sort of imply that we don't yet have the information. I think the physical planning happens somewhere inside of here, right? Yeah, so this plan and run thing, that's actually sort of troublesome. Inside of this plan and run thing, this is where we run this create physical plan thing. And create physical plan is this big recursive function that tries to figure out which nodes to run each part of the plan on. Yo, Uno Dos 3, thanks for the follow. I think you have a language mismatch in your username, but presumably you already know that. I like that one. Uno Dos 3. So yeah, just out of curiosity, like when we do go to this guy, create table readers, this is sort of where we figure out all of the nodes in the cluster that have data that we're interested in scanning at the very bottom level, where we actually read data from tables. It's Spanglish. Yeah, that's a good point. So we run this thing, get node ID for scan.
Everybody knows that
Yo,
relational
Shaquille!
databases don't scale.
Thank you so much for those 2 months, man. How's it going? I really appreciate that. Very generous of you. I hope you're having a good weekend. Yeah. What's a little bit confusing to me is why we just have one node ID returned from this guy. You'd expect that there would be several. Maybe it's this, core placement.node ID. And this is happening in a loop, right? Yeah, so for each of the span partitions, we figure out the node that the core is supposed to live on. Now, I really think that what would be cool, what would be really good, is if the thing that has information that we can see in the web UI could have a handle on the physical plan. That would really fix my problem. Like when we run this create physical plan thing here, I would like it if this could be sort of exportable to the UI. Maybe that's not so bad, honestly. The only challenge with it is that like we could ask for this information before the physical planning is finished, in which case there could be some kind of race condition sort of thing going on, some sort of other problem. So we have to kind of be careful of that. But I think it should be possible. I mean, honestly, I think what we should really do is just pass in that query meta parameter to plan and run. And then we could start adding stuff to it. So why don't we try that? Why don't we try that? I guess it has to even be passed through this. But I don't think that that's so bad either. We have query meta, it should be right here. Yeah, here it is. So we got our query meta. We got our query meta. And yeah, there's all this stuff about locking and unlocking. That's the thing, you know? That is the thing. The reason for this is that when we're executing, there's sort of 2 consumers of this lock. One is the people who are running the statement. They need to be editing the executor thing, which is what this EX variable is. And the other user of it is the people who are trying to pull out the information. So that's the web UI, the thing that we're kind of trying to add information to right now. So, I mean, I think basically we need to be able to touch this thing inside and probably keep a lock on it as well. Yo, Kiachi, what kind of problems would be easier to debug if you know what nodes are running your query? Hope that question makes sense. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's really about like, let's say you have, your cluster is sort of experiencing overload. I think that's one of the most common things that we're trying to help people deal with. For whatever reason, you have a lot of load on your system and things are running slower than you want them to. I think in those situations, you might want to figure out like what nodes are really participating in this query right now. Is it as I expect? Is it just the single one that I'm looking at? Is it just the gateway? Is it, 50 nodes? Is it 5 nodes? That kind of thing. I mean, I think you're definitely onto something, which is that like it might not be the most useful thing in the entire world. But at the same time, I do think that if I plumb this physical plan into the query meta, it could be really powerful to be able to see what the plan is right now. for a query that's lasting a long time. That's not something that we really can do right now. So I do think, yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea. You know, it actually reminds me of something else, which is that we already sort of have infrastructure for this elsewhere. Like in the sort of statement aggregates page, like this logical plan here, we do get this out, you know, into the UI. It's just in a different way. So maybe if I can figure out a way to get this same information into the UI in the other pane, it's sort of a different API that you would need to get this information over there because it's active versus historical. But if I can share that implementation, then presumably I can also share this sort of nice view, which means I wouldn't have to build yet another thing, which could be nice. So maybe it's sort of like I want to plumb up the logical plan and the physical plan. Actually, that could be really cool, right? That could be really, really cool. Which I think shouldn't be so hard, right? Like all we would have to do is when we have this curve plan guy. Well, hold on a minute. Before we get to that, I mean, I'm very curious how we actually send. How does this work again? What are the network calls that we use on this thing? I want to know how we send the plan information in this other page before I do too much more. I just don't remember the API that we use to get it, you know? I guess it's this one, statements. So if I search for statements in this file, right, it's this thing. So it's just called statements. And where do we actually implement this thing? Is my next question. There's statements local. I guess it's this one, statements. So when we ask for this, we create a response. We run, wait, what? Is it recursive somehow? That seems unlikely. This is probably just like a different, oh, this is where we do fan out maybe. I think this is where we're requesting multiple nodes worth of statements, something like that. I think this is probably the thing we care about. Statements local, I think, is the thing that gives me all of the statement information on the given node that I'm receiving from, as opposed to like the entire cluster. So yes, for each of the things in statement stats, get unscrub statement stats. Presumably this is the thing that has the logical plan. It's got count, it's got first attempt, max retries, da 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 da. Does not seem to have a plan. Or is it insensitive info, whatever that may be. Aha, it is insensitive info. Okay, so there's something called most recent plan description, and that's an explain tree plan node. And this thing gets populated by somebody. Where does this thing get populated? Plan to tree. Aha, okay, so this is exactly, hey, I have a to-do for myself from this code. So that's always, it's like half good, half bad. Yeah. But point is, like, all we need to pass in is this plan top thing, and then we can get the RoachPB explain tree plan node. So that's good. I think what we could do first then is we could go back to our status.proto and try to add that information to our active queries. And then we could see the explain for the active queries. So whoever asked that earlier, Eric, I guess that was a good suggestion. So thank you for that. Not just seeing the plan for the previous instances of a query, but the actual current plan. That's actually pretty powerful. So over here, we can add
the data bank's too big.
Yo, PBA Coco, thanks for that follow. I appreciate it.
By guessing.
We're gonna add an explain tree plan node. Is that something? Explain. Is it capital? Explain. Where the heck is this thing? Hold on. State. There should be something called sensitive info or something. Statements response. Collected statement statistics. Extended statement statistics. Okay, this lives in a different protobuf. But the point is that it's called sensitive info, and inside of that it's called explain tree plan node. Okay, so it looks like this, and I guess we have to say appstats dot in order to find it, or cockroach.sql dot or something like that. So we say cockroach.sql dot explain tree plan node. Does that work? Yeah, it seems to. And we'll call it plan description equals 9. The current logical plan for the active statement or something like that. We should just say the logical plan for the active statement. Distributed SQL PogChamp. What's up, Mr. Wormhole? I agree. It is it's very much of a PogChamp kind of thing. I fully agree with you on that one. Isn't it distributed system? What if I told you, Mr. Wormhole, that it was both? Let me hit you with that full screen. What if I told you it was both? What would you do then? Server streaming, client streaming, or both? What do you mean by that? I don't think I follow. Yo, Catastrophe. I like that nickname, and also thanks for the follow. And thank you, Mr. Wormhole, as well for the follow. I don't think I know what you mean by server streaming, client streaming, or both, though.
Search. How are you going to do that? By guessing.
Don't quite get that one. But while this is happening, why don't we regenerate our protobufs? In protobuffer, you only use unary RPC. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, we do a bunch of different things. I think in this particular context, it is just unary RPCs. But elsewhere in the code base, we do use the sort of bidirectional stuff for other things that are not as simple as just like web API requests, which is basically what we're doing. We're using this adapter thing that allows you to take a protobuf set of service definitions and turn them into HTTP endpoints, which is a really nice plugin. If you haven't seen that, I definitely would check it out. It's something from Google. I guess so is protobuf, but it's some other plugin from Google that you can use. Very, very handy. Right, so now that we've gotten this, I think back in our code that generates these things, we can set up a little bit more info. Never use bidirectional, I can't plan it. Using server streaming RPC and unary for a while. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the bidirectional stuff, it's pretty hard to use, I want to say, and like maybe not so necessary, except for like certain situations. I feel like if you're doing bidirectional streaming, it means like you might be doing something complicated, and you might want to think about that. I think in this case, I don't really know why we use it, but maybe it's useful. You know, yeah. I think in this database it does a lot of stuff, so they might use it on the raft layer for like the kind of consensus stuff that happens at the bottom. I think that's what it's used for at the bottom, but I don't actually know. All right, where the heck is this thing that I'm looking for? Query meta. Okay, so here's our query meta, and our query meta now has a new. No, it doesn't. We need to give it a new field here, which is just the current plan that's being looked at. So we'll say x dot. Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Where do we use this darn thing? Oh, it's right. It's actually done in the other spot, right? Over here. Where the heck is this thing? I'm like getting lost. Talking too much about protobufs. Here we go. Okay. What are we using Redux for? I know statement management. Does this have front end? Yeah. So basically, the project that we're working on is like, you know, there's this whole distributed database thing underneath, but on the front end, we've been messing with this page here. This is called the active sessions page, and the idea is that it shows you all of the sessions that are running in the database right now, and it lets you do stuff to them like kill things, inspect things. You can see like. Hello, maybe it needs to be refreshed. Yeah, you can see like, what's the transaction doing that we have open right now? What's the statement doing that we have open right now? And stuff like that. So that's what we're sort of messing with. We're adding stuff to the back end and stuff to the front end, but all sort of in the name of adding more information to this page because we think it's very useful. But check it out, you could just terminate a query like this. Well, bam. Well, bam. I love that. It's just so satisfying. It really feels good to hit something on this web page and then see the query get canceled in the back end. It's really quite neat. But yeah, we're just kind of trying to add some more info to this right now. Yo, Wakar Hokane, thank you for that follow. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just confused right now. Where do we set this again? It's over here. Okay, so this is called the dispatch to execution engine thing. Right. So right here, I think we can also say query meta dot plan. We don't have this yet, but we can say equals plan top. I thought we had a plan top here, didn't we? Or it's x dot current plan. X dot current. I'm like, it's planner dot current plan. Okay, we just have, there's like so many objects in scope in this particular moment. It's just like a kind of crazy time in the life of the execution engineer, right when we're sort of initializing everything. So I kind of want this to be a pointer, I think. So we don't have to copy the whole thing. This has a lot of fields in it. So plan is the current plan that's being executed by the query, or nil if the query has not been planned yet. All right, so that's that. And then when we actually go to serialize these things to those protobuf definitions, then we just get to kind of turn this thing into some a different representation. So here's our new active query thing. This is the thing we just messed with. Here's our plan description. So in order to populate this plan description, we have to kind of turn our plan top, which is available inside of this query thing. We've got this query.plan, and we've got to serialize this thing into something that's like protobuffifiable, essentially. And there is already code to do this locally, because we do use it basically exactly the same in this other page, which is sort of the page that says historically what are the statements that the database has been running. That's what this view is, this logical plan thing. So the same code that generates this should be able to generate the one that we're doing right now. So for the active statement, we just have to figure out where it's done. And I think, let's see. Where would that be done? I think it would be appstats.go maybe. We'd be searching for plan description. Doesn't seem right. Appstats. I guess if we can go to appstats.pb.go, which is the protobuf definition, and we can see who sets this thing. And I think that would. Okay, so over here, sample plan description. And I think we just have to follow this call chain all the way up until we find the place that's actually creating this saved plan for stats. Aha, so there's this function called plan to tree. Okay, that wasn't that complicated, but it did take a while. Okay, so cool. Now if we go back ultimately to this thing, we should be able to run this plan to tree thing. We'll say plan to tree ctx, and we'll call it on query.plan. Do we not have a context here? That's shocking. We definitely do. It's just like called something else probably. There's always a context. The first rule of Go programming. There's always a context, and if there isn't, there should be. There's got to be one like in... Yeah, there's something called x.ctx. All right. Cool, so we've got our plan description. And I guess the next step then would be to just make sure that on the front end, I mean, we probably want to make an element that sort of looks like this, right? So when we go to active sessions, maybe it's like when we go to active sessions and there's an active query, which I guess the query stopped already. So we'll make this start again. We'll go back over here. And if you can see, if there is a query going on, maybe like below this statement thing, we could put the explain. I don't know. Like, again, I'm not a UI guy. So this is going to be ugly. It's going to be like a giant page, but at least the information will be there, right? We can clean it up later, but maybe I'll just like stick it underneath this whole statement thing. Something like that. And I guess, to be honest, we probably need to make sure that this is non-nil. So I'll just do a quick check. Like we'll say, this is a bit annoying. I mean, I guess we just have to kind of, because this is a slice of non-pointers, so we just have to, I guess we could just say, let's see, if query.plan is not equal to nil, we'll say active queries, len active queries -1. This is such an ugly pattern. I feel like it's kind of annoying that you can't just say -1 in Go like you can in Python. But whatever. We'll say dot plan description. What is the connection to running queries and statements? Can you click a link to view the currently running query in statements? No, you can't. That's a good point. So in the front end, if you go to statements, there is no backlink to active sessions. I don't know how you would do that. I mean, I guess you could have like on this page, I suppose you could say like, you know, give me all of the currently running queries that look like this and then jump to them or something like that. That'd be neat. And I feel like with Redux, it'll let you do that without being too expensive. That's not such a bad idea. I like that a lot. You use mutex locks for thread safety. Is using an empty channel with the size of one slower? For thread safety and critical implementations, I see channel. Yeah, so like a lot of that, we do use channels all over the place in this code base. In this particular case, it's just a bit easier to use a lock because, well, it's just more of a traditional, simple synchronization problem where you just want to ensure global access or, you know, yeah. What do you call it? It's just like a big critical section, like the whole thing. But you're probably right. We could use channels. It doesn't seem to be that necessary though, because it just really is at the very top level of the execution here. It's not like deep inside the stack where performance is really critical. It's like kind of the outer part of the query. How did you handle concurrent transaction? That is a deep question, Best Paying Official. It's a very good question, but it's a deep one. So CockroachDB has serializable transactions only. And the way that it works is complicated, but I really need to make a command for this. But if you really want to learn more, what I would suggest is going to our recently released paper in Sigmod, which this is an obnoxious answer, but it's just such a long answer that I don't want to explain it on stream. I need to say like, let's see, commands add Sigmod, check out CockroachDB's recently released Sigmod paper here for details on the TXN model and other things. Are both same with cost? I don't know. That's a good question. It depends. I want to say, I guess I don't really know off the top of my head. You're using wait groups once for concurrency. You made it with channels that became slower. Don't wait groups use channels under the hood? Am I crazy? We use wait groups a lot too. I don't know. I think it just depends. I think channels are pretty slow for a lot of things. Like for example, we did at one point try to make it so that the whole execution engine was based on channel. So for example, every time that you had a row, you know, emitted from one of these parts of the plan or whatever, you would just send it over a channel. Because that's an elegant abstraction and it means that each of the parts of the plan can run independently and stuff like that. But the channel has a lot, big cost. If you're sending, you know, one row per channel, it's very expensive. So I wouldn't recommend using channels for anything where you have to send like, you know, thousands or millions of things over the channel at a time. If you're just wanting to do some basic, you know, mutual exclusion, I would really just use a mutex, right? Whole point of, yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. If you need to do high throughput communication, I think it's like a little bit questionable even to use a channel. It's sad. I mean, empty struct channels are funny. Yeah, we use those all over the place, just for signals. I think of channel more of a signaling thing than a mutex thing. But then again, you can also implement semaphores with them, and we do that as well. Having a channel is a really nice abstraction that makes a semaphore. You know, you make a channel of length 10, and then that allows only 10 things inside of it at once. So, I don't know, dude. There's just 1,000 ways to use any of these primitives. Basically just shipping bit masks around. What's up, OnePlane? How's it going? Yeah. All right. All right. Let's let's, I think what we need to do now, since we've changed this, we do need to recompile real quick. So we'll do that. And while that's going, I think we could start adding a spot for this logical plan description to the bottom of our session info area. You like using them. Every time I see mutex, I remember my OS teacher yelling at me, "Don't use mutexes?" Really? Interesting. I guess maybe what they meant was like, don't use really coarse mutexes. Coarse mutexes are kind of an anti-pattern, right? You want to make your critical section as small as you possibly can if you want to be really performant. But I don't know. I mean, I think mutexes are important, very important for a lot of things. So session details, this is our TypeScript page that has all this information. And I think at the bottom, we'll probably just want to put some stuff here inside of cur statement info if we have some active queries. Coarse mutexes are why Python has trouble scaling over multiple CPU cores. Yes, exactly. It's getting fixed. I don't know, he had some conditional variable vision for everything. Conditional variables. Convars. Those are a thing. Those are complicated. They're hard to reason about, in my opinion. You're currently writing some Python for an Elasticsearch Lambda in AWS. That's cool. Elasticsearch. I think Elasticsearch is really cool. That's something that I really don't know much about, but I want to learn more. I think it seems really powerful. There's a really powerful query API on top of Elasticsearch. I'm just generally interested in how performant full text search or just general search engines work. Like, we kind of have some unperformant search engine stuff inside of CockroachDB that I helped implement, but it's really, I mean, it's just so simplistic that I have to imagine that whatever Elastic or Lucene or whatever is doing under the hood is just got to be much more complicated, much more performant, much more interesting. Would you recommend using Gogo Protobuf over Google's original package? Yeah, so Yadrick, what's up? We still do use this Gogo Protobuf thing, and it is really good. There is kind of a big downside of Gogo Protobuf, though, which is that it's currently unmaintained, I think. Like, there's some problem about this that people are talking about. Gogo Protobuf. I feel like, you see, look at this. Nobody's touched this thing since, in over 6 months. And I think that there's like some issues about it. Maybe it's like, yeah, check this out. Is this project still alive? I'm starting to worry. Like, Protobuf is sort of moving on, but I don't know if Gogo Protobuf is really moving on along with it. Oh yeah, this is the issue that I was looking for. Gogo Protobuf is looking for new ownership. I write to you on behalf of the project, which has long been supported by a small group of dedicated developers. Personal circumstances have changed. The recent Golang Protobuf release has made a big chunk of work and nobody's dealt with it. Yeah, so it's a little bit worrisome for sure. It's really quite worrisome. So I don't know what to tell you, man. It's basically what I don't know what to say. Somebody's got to maintain that. Maybe it should be Cockroach Labs. I don't know, but I don't think it's gonna be. Right. So I think for this next thing, we'll want to say statement dot. It should have a new field in it, right? Should have a new field in it called plan description, right? So we'll say if statement dot plan description. We'll say, maybe we'll say like let plan description equals null. Is that possible in this TypeScript thing? If we have a plan description, we're going to say plan description is equal to, and we'll make a bunch of information here. Well, I guess what we really need to do is figure out the component that we use on the statement details page for this little guy and just reuse it. So if I go to statement details, presumably there is some sort of component here. Yeah, this guy, logical plan. Wait, that seems to be a... Oh, okay, so most recent plan description. Oh, it's a plan view. Sorry, I didn't see that. Oh, that's actually quite simple. It's a summary card with the plan view. So I'll just copy this whole guy and it should be good. And this is going to be plan session statement.plan description. Frontend is more complicated than you thought. Dude, frontend is hard. Frontend is absolutely no joke. It is absolutely out of control, you guys. If you are a backend developer and you haven't played with frontend, I highly recommend you do it. This has been the 2-3 weeks of me messing with React TypeScript. And I would say that I've learned quite a lot, and I have a lot of respect for people who do this for a job because it's quite difficult. It really is. To keep it structured, to keep it clean, to keep it functional, it's very hard. But it's important. You can feel like it's very easy to end up with spaghetti code in front end if you're not careful. And so you got to be careful. And then here I'm going to put, I guess I can put I'll just put my, what did I call it? Logical plan? No. What did I call this? I called it plan description. That doesn't work for some reason. Am I usually doing full stack? No, I am a back-end person who has been dabbling in front end because I'm kind of curious about it. You cannot find the starting point of this project in all my videos. I'm quite behind Best Paint. I'm sorry about that in uploading videos. I've got to do that. But I think that you should be able to find some of them on Twitch because I think Twitch does have the video archive, at least for a couple of weeks. I have the rest of my videos on YouTube. I'm just like a few weeks behind in uploading them. What's up, Clean Men? How's it going? I think whatever the problem here is just that this thing it's just like the wrong type or something like that. Maybe I can just say let plan description is equal to, and then I just set it to like be an empty React fragment or something like that. React.fragment. I think maybe this would be happier if I did this. Oh, I see. The problem is I'm just in a different scope. This doesn't really make any sense. I put the plan description in the wrong spot. If I put it back up over here, I think it'll be happier. Let's see if that fixes things. Okay, so if I go to active sessions and I click my PG sleep one, hopefully I'll see no, I don't see anything. Reason Yodrick is asking is because you're looking to add custom struct tags to your definitions. There's other solutions out there, speed factor. I mean, the main reason that I don't know, like GoGo Proto, it's pretty reliable as far as a piece of software because we've been using it for many, many years without any real trouble. We haven't searched for other alternatives because it's been satisfying the use cases pretty well up until now, I want to say. Like for example, what would be a good example of this thing? What is a custom struct tag again? I feel like that's something that has come up for me, but I don't really remember what it is. If I go processors, something called processors SQL. So we use this like GoGo Proto nullable thing all over the place. I guess I can just
computer's hooked into over 1,000 databases.
We use this thing like all over the place, but I just forget which kind of crazy things we use. Yeah, we have some things with like custom cast types that we use, custom names. We do sometimes do these like custom type definitions that comes up from time to time. I don't quite know what a custom struct tag is, but enum prefix. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what this stuff is. Yo, SRS Ajad, thanks for that follow. I appreciate that. Oh, there's something. What is JSON tag? So check this out. What is this about? Maybe it's saying like for the generated JSON equivalent of the API, you can put some special attributes or information on them or something like that? Thanks for the compliments, you guys. I have some information about that. JSON is one of them. Validate is another popular one. I don't know what that is. Go protobuf validate. Field validator annotation. Oh, that's actually super neat. So that lets you do like essentially custom validation for each of your protobufs. And what happens if it fails validation? I wonder. Validate error functions based on the field options. Oh, that's actually super cool because we do this stuff all over the place, but it's all kind of by hand. I didn't realize that there was support for this. That's nice. Thanks for letting me know. It's quite useful. Field validator. Oh man, there's regexes. There's int greater than. I mean, one thing that I guess is a little suspicious is that a lot of the time, the things that you have to do to validate fields is to like cross-check them against other information in your application, which like you kind of have to have custom logic for anyway. Like I'm not sure how frequent it is that we have like really simple like this has to match a regex kind of things, but have I ever used mobx instead of Redux? No, I've never done that. I hear Redux is pretty good, or like I've been enjoying learning about it anyway. Validate is not built-in tag yet, provided by. Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. React context. I don't know what that is, but that sounds intriguing. I think Redux is. I don't know. I mean, all I've been doing is following a bunch of patterns so far, so I don't know. It's hard for me to really judge whether it's good or not. But why the heck is this thing taking forever? I don't understand. Does anybody use Alacrity here, by the way? Were you here when I was ranting about Alacrity? There's this like Mac terminal called Alacrity that I've been trying to use, and it's like really good, except for one critical flaw, which is that if you have multiple windows, they show up as multiple like command tab icons, which is just driving me actually crazy. And I'm running Alacrity right now for this stream, but like it's just so irritating that I can't figure out which window is which inside of my command tab switcher. Redux inside of React. It's a good question. How is it better than the standard Mac terminal? It has, I mean, you can configure it using like a little YAML file. There's a bunch of more options. It's like kind of faster. I've been using iTerm 2 for a really long time because iTerm 2 has a lot of really nice features like tmux integration and stuff like that. Alacrity is like, it's quite a bit like snappier though than iTerm 2. So I was hoping to use it. This is the settings file. I haven't really like played around too much in these settings yet, but I want to. But I think this command tab thing is going to be a killer. I might just not be able to use it because of that. It's just too irritating. Just use iTerm. What's up, Lef? How's it going? I look gorgeous today. Thanks, Fergio. What am I working on today? So what we're working on is this sessions page, which is currently, I'm in the midst of recompiling, but we're working on a page for this database that allows you to see what are all of the sessions running inside of the database. Kill the sessions, kill the queries, look at explain plans for the currently active things and stuff like that. What we're doing right this very second is trying to plumb through this explain plan for all of the currently active queries up to the web UI. Yarn or NPM, we do use Yarn, but it's, use the package anyway. It seems stable enough. Thanks for your help. Yeah, no problem, Yodrick. I hope it works out for you. I hope the project stays alive, right? I really hope it does, because I think if it didn't, that would be really trouble for me and probably for you too. Okay, so let's rerun this app. Start single node. We'll go back to our front end. We'll go back to our active sessions. So check it out. This is going to be our quick little demo. We have some sessions open. We're going to maybe start a transaction in one of them. In the other one, we'll start another transaction and we'll run a long running command like pg sleep. And then in here, we should be able to see that information in the UI. This is what we've been adding for the last couple of streams. You can see, and here's the logical plan. So I just added this. And it looks terrible, to be perfectly honest. Like the layout is ass, but I mean, the information's there, which I think is quite nice. So if I had something more complicated, like a plan with a bunch of different things, like a join and aggregate distinct, then it would show up here as well. Why don't we try that too? So I'll make something that takes forever to terminate. So let's roll this back, and we can say select, we'll say select count star from, I only have one table in this database, I think, but if I just like cross join it with itself a bunch of times, this won't ever finish. A as A1, A as A2, A as A3, A as A4, A as A5. This is going to be a very long query that will probably never finish. So we can go, if we go back to active sessions and click session age, we should be able to see that there's this big logical plan down here. Count rows, there's a cross join. That's what makes it so slow, full scan. So that's actually pretty nice. That's actually not so bad. Slinks, what's up? I want to learn Golang, but what are the pros of using Golang? Is it used for specific use cases? It's really good for kind of, I would say, general backend software, microservices. This is a database. If you want to build something that's backend software, I think it's quite a good programming language. It's very general though. I'll be perfectly honest. Saying something like backend software, it's not really going to narrow it down very much. I think of it as kind of like a lighter weight Java or a more modern version of C, something like that. Sergey, what's up? I've never heard about Cockroach. Can I give you an elevator pitch? Yeah, so the idea with CockroachDB is it's a distributed SQL database that's mostly Postgres compatible. So if you're used to using Postgres, the idea is that you could use Cockroach and scale your database horizontally. Postgres, you can run it on a single node only. But if you wanted to have a database that has, you know, all these different localities, maybe you want to have part of your database in the East Coast, part of your database in the West Coast, part of it in Europe, and you want to run this thing as a single database without having to do manual sharding, manual replication, you can run Cockroach, migrate your app, and you can treat it just as a normal SQL database. You don't have to think about any of the replication stuff. It sort of does. It happens all under the hood. That's the elevator pitch. Go will make you love programming again after you become veteran of Java or C++. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. You know, at first when I started with Go, I didn't like how simple it was. But now that I've been programming in it for like 4 or 5 years, I really like how simple it is because I feel like it gets the ideas out of my head onto paper more quickly. I don't have to struggle thinking about the right abstraction. It's sort of quicker to develop, I want to say. Would you use Golang to create a REST API? Absolutely. 1000% yes. All right, so we got our logical plans. That is not so bad, TBH. Not so bad. I think the next step is for us to get the physical plan, right? That shouldn't be so hard. So why don't we use our new capabilities? This query is going to run forever, soak up a lot of memory on my machine. So why don't I use my new capability of terminate query? Dead. I love that. That is just, it just feels so good, I have to say. All right. So let's take it to the next level. Let's make a commit for this first of all. I need to get into the habit of making more little commits on stream. Because to be honest, off stream I do lots of little commits. On stream I tend to not do it, and then I end up with a giant mess when I'm finished. So what have we done? We've just added this plan description. We've basically plumbed a bunch of crap up so we can see the plan description from the UI. This is a nice little baby commit. We will add it on its own. So we'll call this, we'll just say, I don't know, UI add logical plan description to active session details page. That's too long of a message. Add logical plan to active session details. All right. So we have this like little convention that you have to use to fill these things out. The session details page now has the logical plan for the currently active query on the session. If one is available at the, if one is available, I'll just say. Stack, what are you using to get those numbers next to Git output? Yeah, so this is a really, really nice plugin called, I think it's called Git Number. This thing is absolutely invaluable, I have to say. What it does is when you do Git status, it prints out a number next to each of the files. And then you can use these numbers when you're doing any other Git operation, like Git add, Git diff, Git cherry pick, anything like that. You can just use these numbers rather than having to type out these giant file names, which I really appreciate. Crumbs, glad that thank you. Appreciate that. ODXS, are you normally writing code as a manager? No, like I don't really, for my day job, no. On stream, yes. That's the short answer. I like programming, even though I became a manager. I was an IC for many years. And just for the past 2 years or so, I've been a manager. But I still like programming, and doing streaming is one way for me to enjoy that without having to change my job title. You were looking to try out File Path Picker for that. We'll check it out. Yeah, I definitely recommend the Holy Geek Git Number thing. It's really super good. Okay, so the next step was to try to add this physical plan stuff. So we started looking into this earlier. And the main thing that we need to do... Best pain, should I learn Golang for making distributed scalable systems? Yes, I think you definitely should. It's a great language to learn. Go is just such a fantastic language, and it's not so difficult to learn that I think you can really learn it pretty quickly if you've got some experience in other languages. So that's part of the reason why it's so great. Why did I decide to go the management route? Do I have a blog post about that? I don't. I really should make a blog post about that. The reason that I decided to do management was that it turns out that I really like it. I didn't know that I would, because I've always loved programming so much. But it turns out that I really value the experience of mentoring others, teaching, trying to help people be the best that they can possibly be, helping people find projects that are good for them, listening to people. You don't get to see my listening skills on stream really, because I'm talking this entire time, but being a good listener is a huge part of being a good manager, and something that I value just in life is listening. And I think that it sounds like a soft skill, like a basic soft skill, but it takes you a really, really long way just to be an effective communicator, listener, just human being, I guess. I feel like being a good human being, if you can figure out some parts of that, chances are that you can be effective as a manager. It's kind of general, but in general, I kind of agree with that. Look, I'm not the most eloquent when it comes to talking about management, I will say. The most influential book that I've read on management, engineering management, is this book called The Manager's Path. If you're interested, I would recommend checking that book out. You don't like Java, it's been forced on you by your company. I want to post a link to The Manager's Path because I just think that this, for me, was such a valuable book. It definitely changed my life to read this book. So big props if you're gonna who is the author again? I can't remember. Camille Fournier. You should follow her on Twitter as well, but she's awesome and wrote a really good book. Ooh. Okay. So we're gonna add the distributed plan, right? We're gonna add this physical plan. We're gonna make it happen. Yeah, add it to your Goodreads. Add it to your Goodreads, I'm glad. Right. So I think what we have to do here is when we run, create and plan and run. I think this is the name of the critical function call, as it turns out. When we invoke this thing, I think what we'll just have to do is pass in this query meta pointer and edit it. Which I guess means we also have to pass it here, right? Or does it? It's definitely confusing. I mean, these mutexes, I don't know. I mean, you guys are right that using the mutex here, it's a bit... It's just like mildly confusing, I would say. Because I can get this query meta without having to pass in the query meta, right? Like I could just essentially grab this block here and then edit it down below. I think I'll probably do that. Hey, Falcon HD, thanks for the follow. I appreciate that.
Databanks.
Hey, and Craze NK, thanks for the follow as well. Truth is though, we actually can't call it as deep into this stack as I would have liked. So that's a little bit unfortunate. I suppose we could just kind of grab the information here and pass it to plan and run directly. We'll try that out. So we're gonna lock our mutex. We're gonna grab our active query information, which I guess is, do we have our query ID at this point or not really? This code is always just so confusing because it's so messy. There's just so much going on. This statement, do we not pass it deeper into the stack? That is sort of the question here. Yeah, we're using JetBrains. We're using JetBrains. We have planner. And so then I think we should have the statement too, right? We can say planner dot statement dot query ID. And then what we're gonna do is we'll say, yeah, I don't like this. I really don't. Because inside of this plan and run, you know, we don't have that mutex anymore. I suppose we could like make it a little atomic. We could make it an atomic. Maybe we'll do that, an atomic pointer, something like that. I mean, I don't have the whole executor thing in here, do I? Yeah, I definitely don't. All right, I mean, I guess we'll just pass in query meta. I don't really love this. I don't really love this at all. I wish I could avoid having to do this. What is plan maybe physical? Oh, you know what we could do? I wonder... You know what we could do? So there's this ongoing effort. You know, there's a little bit of incongruity here, which you might not notice, but basically at the moment there's sort of two phases of planning. That doesn't really make sense that there would be two phases, but there are. There's a logical planning phase and then a physical planning phase. And the physical planning phase is what we're doing inside of this plan and run thing. But there's an ongoing effort to lift some of that physical planning out into an outer part. And I guess what I could do is I could assume for this new feature that we have the lifted physical plan. That would make my life a lot easier because I wouldn't have to do all this plumbing. So maybe I'll do that. And then this feature will sort of not work until we're finished with that migration. I think that would be a better approach. So I'm going to undo this. And I'm going to come back to where we were able to add the logical plan. So where did I do that again? Plan top. If I do git show, it'll probably tell me. So it's here in conexecutor.go. It's where we say this, right? So theoretically... Yeah, theoretically, where do I get that maybe... Whatever it was called. Where... I'm actually slightly confused. I'm slightly confused. Where we have this... I'm getting totally lost. This guy. So what are the arguments to this? And where do we get this argument from? This curplan.main, right? Ah. Oh, I see. Oh, that's very interesting. So in fact, I already have all the information that I need. Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, so when I actually go then to do my export of this thing, of the plan information, I actually have more information than I've been using so far, and I could utilize it. So that should be really good. Right here, we not only have this, but we also have plan.main.fizzplan. Aha. Okay, this is actually huge. This is actually huge. So let's actually go ahead, and I think what we could do here is add another field now to our status.proto that contains the physical plan information. That I think we already have another representation for that we can reuse, hopefully. I guess it would be
over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
Hey, Compiler64, thanks for the follow. I guess it would be in this, is it processors.go that we use this in? Or processors.proto rather? Thanks, dude. There you go. My viewers are learning. Thank you, OnePlane. I'll start to leave these ones to you guys, so I won't have to type it anymore. I appreciate that. So this processor spec thing, I think it's this flow spec. I think I would want to include this flow spec thing in the sort of currently active crap, and then we could have so much information to print out in the UI. Do you have any suggestions for a practical hands-on intro to distributed systems? That's a good question. I actually, to be honest, I don't. I wish I did. Somebody was just asking me this. I was talking with somebody who was looking to try to find a job in systems stuff in general, and I was trying to think of resources for how to get started. And to be honest, I don't have a good one. So I'm interested in looking at that MIT distributed systems thing out of curiosity. Or if you do that, I'm curious to hear how it goes for you, because I don't think I really know of something that's good. Paxos or Raft demo that introduces distributed systems by accident. Yeah, like there is some really cool, there's that really cool Raft like UI demo. These are like games. It's like Raft consensus demo. Yeah, there's like this thing, right? You can see all the little nodes like talking to each other, updating their logs and stuff like this. I don't know. I mean, are you really going to learn that much by watching this? Unclear. But I like it quite a lot. And you can like, you know, time nodes out, mess with them and stuff like that. It's actually pretty neat. Raf.github.io. Totally random though. You've studied CS as an undergrad and read a lot about operating system internals, DB internals, TCP/IP. Still feel like I don't have any practical experience applying it in depth. I feel like that's a common problem. I feel like it's really hard to get distributed systems experience until you work at a company that has a big distributed system that they're maintaining, honestly. Because realistically, like you can work on toys and you can work on your own website and stuff like that, but until you're helping support something that's kind of bigger than yourself, it's going to be sometimes hard to find what things look like at scale. Yo, Canna990, thanks for that follow. Or 990, I should say. So I think if I import this flow spec, though, I should be able to actually see all sorts of cool stuff. So maybe this is SQL.DisQL run or exec infra pb. What was it called? I just had it open and it went away. Exec infra pb. Exec infra pb dot flow spec. Does that work? Does not really work. I guess, do I have to import it? The support in Golang, by the way, for like these protobuf references is like totally broken. I always am getting these red lines that aren't actual. Like if you can compile this stuff, it should be not red, but for whatever reason, doesn't really work that way. So I guess I would want to like import SQL exec infra pb API.proto, is that gonna work? Did it work? So annoying, like it's like impossible to know whether these things worked or not. I actually don't get this at all. Or maybe like the import path is different from the like path where these things live. Is that it? Is that the issue? Oh yeah, package cockroach.sql to SQL run. Interesting. Okay.
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
There we go. That works. Yo, Ronak Singh, thanks for that follow. Okay.
Data banks, data banks.
Hey, Slinks. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out and chatting. All right. So if I compile this baby, make protobuf. Okay, so it didn't work. Expected field name, import was not found. Bunch of problems. All right, let's look at status.proto then. 546. Oh, I didn't put a name, right. Flow info, flow spec. I'll just call it flow, whatever. Learning data structures is very important. It's very important because you're going to use them every day when you start thinking about designing systems. Just stuff as like, even just thinking from super basics, like, do I store stuff in a list or do I store stuff in a map? Just that very basic decision is important and you make it day in, day out. So studying data structures is a great way to get a better intuition for these things, in my opinion. All right, so we've got this flow thing. Maybe we should call it flow spec. I don't know. Flow spec. That seems more natural. Nah, front-end devs also have to use data structures all the time, man. For sure. It's the same thing. You got to decide, do you want stuff in a list? Do you want stuff in a map? And sometimes, do you want stuff in a tree? It happens. It really does. I promise you that. Think about React. Look at the way that React is implemented. I mean, it's like, it's a complicated set of trees that are used to manage state. And if you don't really understand the point of trees or how they work, I think you're going to have a really hard time fully grokking Raft. So I think that data structures are really important for everybody who's doing programming. Just a basic understanding. You don't need to go super deep, but I do think that the fundamentals are going to help you no matter what you do. Okay, so here is where we're setting our plan description. And then if we have a non-nil plan, we can also set our flow spec to be query.plan.main.physPlan. Does that not, oh, do I have to type generate flow specs in order to get this stuff out? Hold on, this is getting like way too nested. Let's pull this thing out first of all. So we'll call this physPlan. And we'll say if we have a physPlan at all, which is, I think it's possible that we don't have one at this stage. We probably want to generate its flow specs. Is that really what we want to do here? I think the answer is basically yes. So I think that when you actually end up sending this stuff out, what you're doing is looking at these flow specs. And so we'll say physPlan.generate flow specs. And this is going to give you back what? Map from node ID to flow spec. Okay. Speaking of data structures, we have a map and we really want to slice. You hate how the tech industry has bastardized the quizzing of these things during interviews. True for React, but designers like WordPress don't use it. Yeah, you might be right about that. But for all y'all should definitely learn data structures. Every one of you. I think it's important. Any good courses on data structures? I think that the best introduction to CS course in general that does touch data structures, it's the classic structure and interpretation of computer programs. I love this book. I think this thing is so cool. It's a little weird. It's in Lisp, which maybe makes it like, maybe this is not the best book anymore, but this taught me a lot. When I was first getting started in programming in high school, I read this and it really did me wonders. But you know, maybe it doesn't really touch data structures too much. That's a good point. Like maybe you could look at the like more modern SICP equivalent they have at MIT. Like there's something called, like they redid it to be Python instead of Scheme. But I don't know if you can like get it for. There's also this other thing, how to design programs, HTDP. I think this book is pretty cool too. Yo, Crystal Gamer, what's up? You like Lisp because you had to learn Scheme, pretty cool language. Yeah. CLRS schools, but it's dry as fuck. Yeah, I think CLRS is like a hard intro. I wouldn't pick that as an intro to data structures. Tim Roughgarden's algorithms course on Coursera. That's cool. I haven't checked that one out, but I should look at it. So we'll grab our flow specs. And I think what we need to do now is figure out how to serialize this map. I don't know how to do that. Maybe we could have two lists in our thing. We'll have a slice of flow specs as well as a slice of node IDs. Maybe that'll be the way to do it. So we'll go back to our protobuf. You wish you were that old? I don't know which one I don't know what you're talking about there. Maybe you're, I was not around exactly. Well, I guess I was around when they were teaching that Scheme stuff, but I didn't take it in college or anything like that. I was, yeah, I graduated from college in 2011. So we'll have a slice of these flow specs, right? So how do you do a slice in protobuf? I don't remember. Oh, it's repeated, right? Yeah, so you do repeated field. So we'll have a repeated field of node IDs. Is there like a thing for this, or do we just use integers? It looks like we just use int32. So we'll say repeated int32 node ID. And as a convention, when you have a repeated field, do you pluralize it? Yeah, it looks like you do. So I'll say repeated int32 node IDs, and then repeated flow specs. And we'll make a comment. The flow specs for, hold on a minute. Is it the case that there's just one flow spec per node, or did I screw that up too? So yeah, it looks like it. So for each node ID, we just have one flow spec. That's good. Good to know. Flow specs for each of the nodes in the plan. The length of these two fields is identical. One book with the chess horse piece logo. Yeah, Springer does have the chess horse pieces. The yellow books. I like the look of Springer's stuff. All right, and of course we need to make field names that actually make sense here. We can't have them both be called 10. All right, so that is that. We'll remake our protobuf headers. We'll remake our protobuf header. Oh, you have a link to a Springer book, eh? What could it be? What could it be? Data structures and algorithms of first course. Wow. But then you're gonna have to spend 80 euro, you know? Like, you don't wanna have to spend 80 euro when you can just look at the free HTCP. What is it called? HDCP. How to HTDP? This guy, you should look at this one. This is really good for beginners. And I know Robbie Findler. He's a cool guy. He taught at UChicago when I was there, I think. Anyway, all right. We're gonna set up this stuff over here. We're gonna get our flow spec map. We're gonna say for node ID flow spec in range flow spec map. We probably want to pull this thing out too. So we'll call this active query. We also need to make this a pointer. or else we won't be editing an actual thing of it. So that's going to be good. And then for each of these flow specs, we're going to say active query dot node IDs equals append active query dot node IDs comma node ID. So we're adding our new node ID, which is apparently the wrong type. It's a node ID, it needs to be an int32. We can just cast it, no problem. Love that. Okay, so then for the flow specs, we'll append a new flow spec that we just made to the list of flow specs. All right. That's all there is to it. And then we're gonna have this stuff in the admin UI. So that's great. Let's recompile this puppy. Love online docs. Yeah. It's good stuff. Let's kill the current instance. We will rebuild. We will rebuild it. We will make it stronger. We will add the flow specs. I wish that this part was faster. I complain about this nearly every stream, but man, it is slow to build, to run whatever the heck this thing is. Protobuf JavaScript compiler, Webpack, the thing that turns the Webpack file into a Go file. Man, it's just like waiting for paint to dry, my dudes and dudettes. Absolutely brutal. I really need to think of some something to do. You know, I can switch to this mode. I can just give you a little monologue while we're compiling, but I want something more creative. That'd be fun. Transport myself into a foreign land. That would be the dream. I guess what we could do is while we're waiting, we could think about how we're going to use this information on the front end, because I think that that's a non-trivial problem. We've never had information, we've never had access to these flow specs on the front end until now. So I don't think that there's any primitives that are going to allow us to display them unless we think about it a little bit, which could be trouble, to be honest. It could be big trouble. What's up, Ronan Celeste? If you hit exclamation point keyboard in the chat, it will tell you. So if I go to session details, in this file where I have curse statement info, the very bottom where I have plan description, this is really the question. This is really the question. I now have more things. I have statement dot plan description as well as node IDs and flow specs. And I'm fairly sure we've never touched this stuff in the front end before. I do know that there is something else though. There is something else that I should tell you about, which is that, let me show you an example here. Let me show you a quick example. If I go over here, the database is not running. That is true. Let us run a demo. If I go over here, and I say create table A, AN, create table B, AN, explain dSQL. Select star from A join B on A equals A. If I say this, B.A, and just say natural join, that's like the cool way. Who knows their SQL? Who knows what natural join means? But if I run this and get this URL open, this gives me this picture, which maybe if you've been watching the stream for a while, you probably remember this picture. But you know, conceivably, I could try to make, you know, embed the thing that creates this picture into the web UI. I don't know. That seems like kind of high. It's like above my skill level in front end though. But the question that I really have is like, there's something that transforms these flow specs on the Go side, which is the things that I've just passed to the front end as protobufs into this picture. And I wonder if I can somehow use that to produce this picture in a different way or something like that. I don't know. Why don't we look at that? Why don't we look at that next? So I think if I go to the Go side and I search for usages of these flow specs, somewhere I shall find, yeah, there's this flow diagram.
The data bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you going to do that? By guessing.
Hey, Roger390, thanks for that follow. I appreciate it. So what's interesting is that this generate plan diagram thing, it's a little bit unfortunate that we do this all in the back end. Because if it was on the front end, I could just reuse what was there. As it is, we don't have that luxury. We don't have that luxury. Out of curiosity, I mean, let's just do something real quick. This should be kind of cool. So this is this rebuilt yet? Is this finished rebuilding? It has. So let's restart the database. Now that we've added that feature, let's go to our session. Let's see what tables we have. Let's make a new table. We just have A. Let's make a new table. Make it exciting. We'll create table B. Very creative. What are the show create A? A has some UUIDs in it, so we'll make a B. What? What if CockroachDB meant Cockroach Data Bank? What if it? How do you know it doesn't? One plane. Create table B ID. We'll make a foreign key. You know, we'll like try to act cool. We'll just say, I don't know. This is just not that important. AUID, BUUID, primary key AB or something. This doesn't make any sense. I'm just making some sample data. You see, yes, you do. We'll say insert into B, select GG from generate series 1 to. What we want actually is not this at all. What we want is to make some random UUIDs. Gen random UUID. You always mix CockroachDB with CouchDB. They're very different. CouchDB is a NoSQL document store. CockroachDB is a SQL database. They do have a similar name in a way. In a way, they have a similar name. All right. Now that that's done, let's just do something like select count star from A. I want to make another giant BigQuery that crashes again. I guess I didn't need to use this whole other table thing. That was sort of a waste of time, huh? What about this? That didn't work. That's funny. You'd think that I think this might be a bug. Like, really, this should be sleeping every time it gets executed, but it doesn't. CouchDB and Couchbase? I have no idea what the difference between CouchDB and Couchbase are. If you can enlighten me, that'd be cool. All right, I'm just gonna do this dumb thing again. We'll just make a giant cross join that never completes so we can inspect it in the web UI. All right. So back to here. Got our active sessions, we got our queries, we have our logical plan, and the question is, what does our physical plan look like? So in order to do this, I think what we have to do is, well, you know what we can do is actually go right to the status page here for sessions. I think we could do this, right? So check this out. Not only do I have a plan description, but I should hopefully also have, oh, I don't. Why is that? It might be because the new planning method is not enabled for this query. Ooh, that would be unfortunate. Remember how I said that there was this new thing that sometimes generates the physical plan early on in the process? That might not be enabled for every query yet. I mean, I know it's not, and it might not be enabled for this query. But it also might have like a session setting behind it. So hold on a second. You keep mixing up Firebase and Firebird because you use neither. Isn't Firebird like a mail client? Or is that Thunderbird? So what would this be called? It's like the new, let's see. The new factory. Okay, so this is a relevant commit here. Dist SQL spec exec factory. Okay. Dist SQL spec factory. Thunderbird, yes, which makes it worse because if you mix Firefox and Thunderbird, you get Firebird. But Firebird is an RDBMS also by Mozilla. Oh man, I didn't actually even know that. That is fascinating. All right, so this is the big thing. And the question is, when does it get used? When does it get used? Experimental Dist SQL planning mode. Aha. So if I set this to on, or always maybe. Experimental Dist SQL planning. Okay, let's try that. They love the birds. So we'll say equals always. I actually guess we want it in our other session. Okay, so we run this. Now maybe we'll have some more explosion. Okay, I guess I did something bad. I guess I probably caused a crash in the... Where is this thing crashing? Error while walking plan to save it to statement stats. Explain of a query with opt-driven Dist SQL planning is not supported. Oh, that's trouble. That's big trouble. Big trouble. I guess it makes sense. Oh, but that's big trouble. Yo, the Ronin, thank you for the follow. Why is your Cockroach doing that many compactions? Is that because you generate large series of data? Is it doing a lot of compactions? Yeah, you're right. I think it's probably because I made giant number of rows or something. I don't know. This is just like a crappy test instance too, so I don't know what, you know, it's running master. It has a bunch of random crap data in it and stuff. Could be doing anything. I don't know. Well, the way that these compactions work, by the way, I mean, you should, if you're familiar with the LSM tree thing, the idea is that like, it's expected in a sense that you're going to start out with a ton of little baby SS tables that get compacted into a bigger one. So I think in a sense that this is sort of expected to do a bunch in a row. And it's not saying that they're doing separate compactions per se, but saying that it's compacting several small SS tables into, you know, a few bigger ones. You can see what it did. Compacted L0. So L0 is like the top of the LSM tree. And I guess it's saying, I'm surprised it doesn't say like compacted L0 into L1 or something, but anyway. Add a lot of data at the same time. Yeah, exactly. Yo, Waka Flocka Kid. Thanks for that follow, man. Do appreciate it. So this is kind of leaving me unhappy a little bit, to be honest, because I'm sort of like in between two worlds. On the one hand, in the new factory, I can't generate this explain tree plan node thing. That's trouble. And on the old factory, I can't generate these things. So it's sort of like I have either one or the other. And that's not, I wouldn't say it's great. I would not say it's great. And I also would not say that it's great that this thing just panics when it's in the wrong mode or whatever. Right? So I feel like I need to do something about that. Error while walking, plan to save stats, explain to the placement, yeah, this is trouble. This should not be a panic, is basically the point. This thing really should return an error. I should make this into a commit all of its own. Let's do that real quick. So instead of just returning the plan node thing, I'm also gonna have it return an error. Like so. And at the bottom, we'll say nil. And here we're gonna say return nil, error status version failed F. Then we've got to go and find the usages of this thing. Now in this case, if this is, well, this is new code that we're adding, so we guess we don't really have to worry too much about this. But I mean, in this case, I mean, we kind of just want to log it and continue on with our lives, right? So we'll say log dot warning, maybe. Failed to serialize plan to proto. And it's not even really a warning. It's not that big of a deal. We'll just make it an info. We don't need to worry an operator if this is happening at all. It's just not that bad. Info F, %v, error. All right. And then for the other spots where this is used, I guess this also doesn't have an error. Ooh, and this one doesn't have an error either. We're in error plumbing mode. I guess like the point is that we don't really want to do anything in particular besides log something, honestly. So maybe that's all fine. The Ronin, what feature are you building out right now for CockroachDB? So what we're working on right now is adding a little bit more information to the front end, the admin UI. I'm usually not a front end programmer, but so the last couple of streams I've been working on learning some of that stuff. And the idea is that when you're running the database and you have some long running queries like this one, if you go over here to the front end, you should be able to sort of inspect them and see some information about them. And that's what we've been building. So you can see there's this active sessions page, which is new. And it's got some information, memory usage, what the query is. You can kill things, you can terminate them. You can click into details. You can see the current logical plan. You can see the statement, stuff like that. So that's what we're sort of messing with right now, if that makes sense. And then here, I guess we need to also pay attention to this error. And again, it's like if we don't have anything here, there's nothing we can do, so we'll just log it, I guess. I mean, honestly, maybe plan to tree should just log it. Well, nah, we'll just log the error here. I didn't check if the error was not nil over here, did I? We'll just basically copy this. I mean, this same error message basically applies. All right. And then I think we just had one more instance of this, which was in a test. So we've got to change that one as well. Oops, that was not the test one. This is a good little commit to make, I want to say. So we'll make that real quick. Make this a bit bigger for people. So we'll say, maybe it's a little bit too big. Git add p, we're gonna add not this thing, Yes, this thing. Yes, this thing. Yes, this thing. Yes. Yes. No. Okay, so just a little baby commit that fixes get diff cached. This is just fixing the lack of error output in planted tree. Okay, and we can cherry pick this to another branch so we don't have to deal with it too badly. Okay, so we're gonna say, man, it's annoying that the database is like kind of outputting. Let's see. So if we say foreground and then just suspend it, just leave it alone. Okay, so we'll say SQL give plan to tree and error output, remove a panic. Previously, if an error was encountered during serialization of a logical plan to a protobuf suitable for consumption by the web UI, the database would panic. Now we return the error, and all callers log it and continue on with their lives. Release note none. All right, so just a quick little thing there. And I guess while we're at it, well, nah, whatever. Deal with this later. I mean, this, I guess I'm a little bit sad though, because
The data bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you gonna do that? By guessing.
Eduardo, thanks for the follow. I'm sad because it's just unclear to me which direction to go with this now. Because we have some situations in which it's totally reasonable to send this thing up to the web UI, and some situations in which, I mean, it's a bit troublesome. We're gonna have to figure out a way of redoing this altogether at some point soon.
Data banks.
Crumbs was taken. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. I'm just thinking, I'm a little bit in my head right now because I'm nervous that the lack of this thing is actually trouble for a reason that's sort of unrelated to what I'm doing. I mean, it's vaguely related, but essentially like this, whoops. This page here, it's got the kind of historical stats.
Data banks.
The fact that this thing exists right now and doesn't exist in this new factory that somebody else is working on is, well, it's trouble. It's just they need to add this, or else we're gonna be upset when it doesn't work. Yo, Tagger, thanks for the follow, man. Hey, we just passed 800 followers, by the way. Thank you guys all so much for the followers and for the chatting and everything. It's quite fun. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. And 800's a big number. Big arbitrary internet number that makes me feel great. So what should I do? You know, what should I do right now? I've got this information that I could play with some of the time. Oh yeah, you know, all right. There was one thing that we wanted to do. We wanted to, like, after we made that bug fix, we kind of want to recompile the database, and we want to now take a look at what kind of information is in those, are in those flow specs, probably is, and then we can see about visualizing them on the front end. That's what we were doing before we went down that rabbit hole of sadness. And I think once we have that information on the front end, you know, at least we can print it out in like a dumb way so that people can see it, I guess. Right, we were in here, we were looking at, we've got this plan description thing, and instead of plan description, what we're gonna have in the future is the flow spec. That's kind of the point, right? This thing is still like, yeah, that's a thing. when you are doing this compilation, it often regenerates these big TypeScript files that have all the protobuf headers, which means that your IDE will just sit there doing nothing for quite a while. I'm the first person who pronounced your name correctly, Tagger. Ah, that was lucky. I think I mispronounce people's names on this all the time, but I'm glad that it worked out for you. Tagger. Are you one who tags? What is this thing doing? Come on, little buddy. You can do it. So irritating. I guess we can look at status.ts or whatever it is. Proto.ts. Protos.d.ts. I feel like this is the file to look at, right? Active queries. Okay. Flow specs. This is what we wanted to mess with. So what does it have? It's got a flow ID. It's got a gateway. It's got some processors. The processors of inputs and outputs. Oh yeah, I mean honestly, the problem is that the tree that's sort of represented in here is it's like not really an explicitly represented tree. You kind of have to assemble it yourself, which is extremely irritating at the very least. So it does make me kind of wonder, maybe it would be better not to ship these raw flow specs to the front end and force the front end to reconstruct the tree itself. Because we have code that does this in so many places and it's so finicky that maybe what we really want to do is ship it in a different way. And yeah, you know, honestly, it's not even going to be that useful to have these things because they're so raw. They're just so raw, this information. So it's like all these strings, you know, like once the database gets around to looking at this stuff, it's going to be able to produce more structured information than what we have here. This is kind of like, yeah, it's sort of like an internal API that we use to ship the kind of SQL operator stuff around the cluster. You just made up that tagger means tagging or dealing damage in FPS shooters. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting demotivated by this idea of trying to make a pretty plan viewer because I feel like other minds are working on this already. All right, let's get back. I guess it was an interesting idea. But maybe I should give up on this one for now, though. I'm not sure. I still love this. I feel like this, I mean, I almost feel like this on its own was just such a big win that it's hard to make another win as big as that one. Just being able to kill a query right from the front end is just so awesome. Tag it, so to speak. Yeah, it's kind of sad. Kind of sad. I think we could, yeah. Right. One thing that I completely forgot about that was that earlier, what we really wanted to do before we got all like the project sort of became too big for its britches. The idea was that we at least wanted to be able to show what nodes were being used in the execution of a query. But realistically, like without having all of the plan information, I almost feel like it's just not that exciting to see that information. So maybe it's just not worth it. Like if I go to statements, don't we have that information there as well? Like if I, you know, run a bunch of stuff, refresh this, don't we have something that's like all the nodes that participated? Did I make that up? Stats by node, right? Oh, but you know, the thing is that these are actually stats by gateway node. And what it doesn't have is like which nodes you know, I still think it's useful. The only thing is, right, there's this boondoggle with the fact that like sometimes we can get the plan from before in the ordinary logical plan time, and sometimes we get it after. And I think honestly it would just be better just from the perspective of making a clean abstraction to wait until we figured out it's always going to happen before. That's in progress. So maybe I'll kind of pause on this kind of zone of project for now. Yo, Gabby VLJ, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Random question from Ronak. You're an ML engineer, want to become backend developer, also interested in systems programming and high performance computing. Where should you start? I mean, I don't know. You're an ML engineer. You know Python and some C++. How do you become a backend developer? I think the answer to that is probably to pick a project that interests you. Maybe you are interested in databases. Maybe you're interested in networking. What do you mean by systems? You have to figure out kind of what that interest is and explore it. You know, make a little toy project. Find some people who are already making a toy project that you like and contribute to it. Learn about how some of these things work. That would be my recommendation. I think for me, the best way to learn an area is to work on a prototype or a project or a little thing that's in that area. For me, it's like, unless I've got my hands dirty in a sense with something in an area that I'm interested in, I find it hard to learn. I don't know if that's helpful, but I think one I don't know, the areas that I'm interested in include compilers, interpreters. That's, I think if you learn a little bit about compilers and interpreters, you're gonna maybe learn some things about systems too. I think building an interpreter is such a fun project that you should do it no matter who you are. Building network stacks is also kind of cool. I think that's really hard to do on your own though, unless you really have a reason to do it or a motivation to do that. Unclear if you really want to spend time doing that, but you got to pick a project that you're interested in, man. That's my advice overall. I think, I don't know, there's also probably courses you can take and stuff like that, but I just don't have that much experience with online courses and stuff like that, so I don't know what to say. This is just my biased personal opinion. Yeah, Designing Data-Driven Applications, absolutely great book. That's a great point, the Ronin. It is such a good book. That's like a classic. Gabby says you're interested in networking databases and compilers, but I don't know which one you can go deep into. I think you should build a Lisp interpreter. We were talking about Lisp interpreters a little bit earlier. If you've never built an interpreter, I think that it's just such a good project. You're going to learn so much. And it's also really, really cool to build a program that can run programs in a sense. So you should do it. Structure and interpretation of computer programs. It's a classic. There's also this other great thing called, I think there's even a Go thing, right? It's like Go interpreter book. Isn't there something like this? This Thorsten Ball guy. I think this is a pretty good book. I thought there was another Go interpreter thing. What was it called? Go interpreter. What the heck was it called? There was some other guy making a similar project. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, this is pretty cool though. You use that resource? You've built one already, so you have an idea? Credible, super useful. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, I didn't know that if you've already built an interpreter, then I guess you gotta pick something new. What kind of language did you make your interpreter for? Yeah, for sure. It's always so hard to know when people come into Twitch chat to try to assess their level of experience. It's basically impossible. So a lot of people are beginners and some people are not. It's hard to know who you are. Yeah. Exclamation point GitHub. What would I put on exclamation point GitHub, do you think? Is that a useful command to have? Should I put my GitHub there or
The
something like
data
that?
bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you gonna do that?
I guess I could.
By guessing.
I don't know, but it's also in my Twitch profile. I feel like that's not the most useful information to have that I've ever seen, but yeah, I don't know, guys. I don't know what to add. I don't know what to add. Should I bother adding those nodes? I feel like no. I feel like no. I feel like I should wait until the representation of plans gets unified. Currently, you're too busy trying to figure out interviewing skills, so you don't get stomped. You'll get it, man. You can do it. I believe in you. Especially for people who are just studying CS. I think the interviews tend to be things that you can definitely accomplish. Lead code is pretty hard. I think a lot of the time, depending on where you're applying, the questions that they're going to ask you are going to be simpler than the ones that you get on lead code. As long as you know the basics, you know the basic categories. You got your tree programming, you know, you got your dynamic programming algorithms, you know, you've got all these little classic types of problems. If you know like one or two of those, I think you'll probably be all right. You guys have all been doing interview prep. It would be fun to do something like that on stream, I guess. I feel like there's a lot of people who do interview stuff on stream. I'm not sure if I would be adding that much to do interview questions on stream, but it has crossed my mind that it would be fun. One thing that I really liked doing a few years ago is I did this Advent of Code thing. Have you guys seen that? Advent of Code. So there's this like, during like December, they have some problems every day. They come out with a new problem and you can sort of race to solve them. So one year I like tried really hard to race and do all the problems and stuff like that, which was super fun, but it like really messed up my sleep schedule because they come out at 12 EST, like at midnight. So I was like staying up super late doing this stuff for like no good reason. So I don't want to do it again, but in general, they were cool problems. Corona ruined the job hunt. Doing problems daily. Big companies were straight out of lead code. Slightly different was Dropbox. Interesting. That's good to know. Yeah, maybe the big companies are a little bit more standardized on lead code stuff. Concurrency questions at Dropbox. That's actually kind of cool. That is kind of cool. Coming up with a good concurrency question I feel like is quite hard, but it could be neat. I mean, it could be very interesting. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've been thinking about doing for a while, and it's kind of on a different tack, is what happened? Bunch of startup in NYC last year doing mostly lead code stuff. I had some branch for this stuff. What, wasn't it this exec always stats? What's in here? I think this is the thing that I was messing with. That was kind of interesting. 2 companies asked you to do take-home projects, including Cockroach Labs. Yeah, I think the take-home it can be pretty good. I think it's a good technique for interviewing. I'm assuming things didn't work out for you with Cockroach, and if so, sorry about that. But you can always reapply. I do think that, yeah, what's kind of funny is that I do so much Cockroach stuff on stream that I do wonder whether it will help random individuals who might be interested in working on CockroachDB for their job. I don't really know. Unfortunate part is all the interviews are easy. The hardest part is getting the interview. That can be true depending on various things. One plane also gives candidates take-home work, works the best in self-selection. What's up, Fang Skills? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. I don't think I've seen you here before. Hope you're having a good weekend. All right. So let me introduce you to a horror known as the horror of the giant list of stashes that I have in Git. I wanted to see if I had a stash for that branch that I was looking
Everybody knows that relational databases don't
Yo!
scale because
In different
they
Ghost,
join
thank you so much for the gift sub to Fang Skills. I really appreciate that, man.
and write to disk.
And Fang Skills, welcome to the channel. Again, you now can use an emote. It's the one emote that I have. I have another slot that I could be adding an emote to, but I haven't figured out what to put in it yet. But you can use this exclusive, hilarious emote of myself looking like an ancient alien guy. Bin Coda, are you trying to print the execution plan? Yeah, well, we have all sorts of ways of printing this execution plan. But I wanted to make one that works on the currently active thing. It wasn't really working out. We have a way of doing it in text. We have a way of doing it on the UI. It just this particular context, it wasn't really working out. Take Home has the benefit of being a bit more realistic. Yeah, I think that's true. I'm getting the sense that Indifferent Ghosts and Fang Skills are a dynamic duo of power. But welcome to both of you guys, if that's the case. So I guess what I want to check out now, I do want to take a pause from that page because I just feel like I've sort of hit a wall with it. I want to go back to this other thing that I was working on quite a while ago, which is super cool.
Data banks.
Super, super cool stuff. Indifferent Ghost. Thank you, dude. I really appreciate that. I'm going to rebase this. Git rebase origin master. The idea with this particular thing, ooh, we got some merge conflicts. That's fun. That's fun. What is this about? Who's ready to resolve some merge conflicts? I know I am. What's up, Pablo? What's up, Bruno Amado16? And Dingal Deluxe. Thanks for the follow. I really appreciate it. Okay, so what did we do? What the heck happened? It looks like I have something called small refactor.
Data banks throughout the world.
Yo, Bruno, thanks for that follow. Oh yeah, I remember what this was about. So I think at a certain point we like coalesced a bunch of these stats into a big stats object rather than passing like 8 million things. So I think to resolve this we really just wait. I actually don't remember. Record statement summary. What does this look like now? I think the IDE's cache has got badly thrashed because I checked out like a 2-week-old branch and lots of stuff has changed since then. Okay, so in record statement summary, what we have is a function that takes something called stats, top level query stats. Okay, cool. So I think all we have to do really is get rid of this bottom 2 and replace it with this top 1. And I think that will be a good way to resolve this stuff. Here, well, why don't we just open this in the IDE? I don't really remember what we were going for here. So this currently returns what? It returns just an error. Right, we want to keep this guy. And this thing claims to be returning a top level query stats. Okay, so all we have to do is just drop this whole thing. We don't, right? Yeah, I think we just drop this. And likewise for this one. Okay, so that was actually simple. It just was masquerading as confusing for no good reason. Okay, no. So you know what this probably is actually I don't know. Whatever. I think we like redid this commit on a different branch. Okay, this one, I think I know what this one's about too. So this is where we were adding, this is actually such a cool thing. We were gonna try to add network bytes read, as well as like how much time we spent blocked on the network to the execution stats, which is not something that you can really get right now. But it looks like, I can't really remember. Did I have another branch for that? It's kind of one question that I had. I don't think I did. I think it was just this thing called exec always stats. So I guess we just edit this one thing and that's all there is to it. Okay, so we can get rid of these things because we now have this top level query stats thing. It's possible that we have to add the network stuff to top level query stats if we didn't do that already. I don't know why I do conflict resolution in Vim, you guys. I think I need to stop doing that. It's just like a bad habit. But I'm just so used to doing it in here instead of in the IDE that I just do it that way. But it does really make no sense, to be honest. Okay, so here we just need to edit all of these things to say r.stats instead. And then I think that this is basically gonna look right. Okay. Gotta love those rebase conflicts. It's just so fun. Okay. So the first commit that we did is basically just that we're keeping track of a few more quantities, which is how many bytes we read over the network. We're doing that over here where we actually oh, no, this is sort of the bottom, sorry. I think what we haven't done, yeah, it's over here. Okay, so over here in this drain meta thing, the idea is that this function, this kind of component is called an inbox. And in a distributed plan, an inbox is a piece of code that is listening to rows sent from a remote node. So this is a great time to keep track of the number of bytes that we read over the network, as well as the amount of time that we spent blocking on packets from the network. I think this is interesting information to keep track of if you're trying to debug what's going wrong with the slow query. So we are adding that information.
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
Yo, Fang, thanks for the follow. This is like the first time, you know, you got a gift sub, and then you hadn't been following the channel. That's like normally out of order. Normally people follow first and then subscribe, but you got to be the lucky opposite direction thanks to your friend. Yo, PL__NK. Should I pronounce that plank or something? Plonk, plonk. Thanks for the follow. So we did that. And then this last one, the idea was that at the moment, it's the case that like we only pass back all of these execution stats, these like more detailed statistics about what the query has done, if tracing was enabled, which is a more expensive way of capturing other stuff, like just a distributed trace. If you're familiar with stuff like Zipkin or Dapper or Jaeger, these are technologies that allow you to do distributed traces of distributed systems. And it's expensive to do that stuff, but I want to get the statistics all the time, and it's just not that expensive to do so that's what this commit was attempting to do. It doesn't do that much, as you can see. But I think we can dive into it. I just am trying to remember like the context. So we always get this metadata back, and the question is, what do we do with it, right? That's kind of the ultimate thing. The ultimate question is, what do we do with this metadata that we're always returning now, all of a sudden? I think it's kind of here, right? So if this is dis-SQL running.go, so let's check out that file again. Dis-SQL running.go. Wait, what's going on with this? Should be r.stats. So we have this thing called top level query stats. And We're adding some more information to it. Network, let's write a comment. Network bytes read is the number of bytes that were read over the network by any node in the query. And it's basically the same with this. We should honestly also add like disk blocked dir while we're at it, you know? I feel like that's also really interesting information. Is the duration that was spent blocked on waiting for network packets. Well, to be sent over the network. I don't know. This is like a terrible comment. It's the duration that was spent blocked on. I'll just say that the query spent blocked on network, the network. One thing I'm a little confused about. Is I mentioned that we didn't used to always generate this data. I think we do always generate this kind of data. I think what we don't always generate, right? That's what I think I was confused about. So there's two commits on this branch. There's one, this guy. I should make this a little bit more obvious, and I think I will right now. So first I need to fix this original commit to have both of these changes. So we'll use git commit -- fix up and pass in this old commit, which is this is a neat thing, by the way. If you don't know about it, it like automatically makes a commit message that has this like exclamation point fix up syntax in it with the name of the earlier commit that you specified. And what it does is when you then type git rebase -I, it'll automatically like notice that this is supposed to be a fix up commit and stick it, reorder it so that it's next to its friend. And that's a quick way of amending commits that are earlier than the most recent commit on your branch, in case that's something that you need to do. I feel like it does come up all the time that you need to do that. I find this to be a pretty useful trick. You can also do it with -- squash. It's the same thing, except it'll keep the other commit message, just like squash does in rebase. What's up, GruntX Python? It's fast to type. I think, what I'll do while I'm at this, I think what I want to do is also add the blocked duration on disk, because I feel like that's actually just super useful information to have all the time. So we're going to add that. That goes into this other protobuf, so data.proto in exec_infra pb. So I'll search for dir. No? Oh, it's in a different... This is not right. It's not called dir, it's called network blocked ns. Okay, so we're gonna also add a disk blocked ns thing. And we're gonna take this liberty to reorder these fields. By the way, if you're working with protobuf, never do this. You're never really supposed to reorder fields because these numbers are critical to ensuring telling the protocol which field is which. The only reason I can do that here is that I haven't added this code to anything yet, so it doesn't matter that I'm reordering it. If this had ever made it to production, this would be an illegal move, and I would have to call this, number 6 basically, or number 5, and keep these 3 and 4. But we don't have to do that since we've never launched this into production or anything. So we can say total. I'll just copy this comment. Waiting for disk bytes. Whoops. I guess I'll say block. To be totally accurate, what it is spent blocking on the KV layer. So I guess I should call it like KV blocked rather than disk blocked. What am I making? So I'll just stick this project and I'll stick this CockroachDB. Basically, I'm adding more execution statistics to this database. It's a SQL database, so these are statistics that are getting collected during the execution of a SQL query. Before we were messing with, I mean, now I guess the title's kind of inaccurate. We were doing a bit more of React TypeScript stuff because we were editing the front end of the database, but we sort of stopped doing that because we got discouraged by the lack, or basically by some other crap. So we're back to editing sort of the back-end statistics. I think in the end, we should be able to plumb these statistics all the way through to the front end without too much trouble. But before I do that, I just wanted to, yeah, I have to collect a little bit more information from the back end first. Right, so I think in order to do this, all we have to do is go to the things that actually read from disk and start adding these kind of extra timers and stuff so we can do that. I think essentially before what we did is at the very end of this table reader, this is the thing that actually reads bytes from disk. You know, another thing that I'm realizing is that I bet these metrics are probably missing from... So in a database, there's a few different ways normally to read data from disk. You can either do a scan, and I'll just do a quick example of all of these things. I'll start my database up again. I'll go over here. I'll do show tables. So I have this big table called A, which has like 100,000 rows of UUIDs. And if I just said select count star from A, if I did an explain on this, the way that the data is getting read from disk is just a basic scan of all the data in that table A. And that's why it says full scan here. And the way that this is implemented in the backend of the database is this file here called table reader. But there's another way that you can get data from a database, and we call it a lookup join. Some other databases call it a nested loop join, but either way it's the same. And the idea is that for each row in a different table or in a different data source, we're doing a separate lookup into this table. And that's implemented by a different file. And I'm a little bit suspicious that that other file doesn't have these actual metrics getting emitted. So we're gonna check that out in a second. But let me give you an example of a lookup join here. So if I said select star from, I have this other table B, right? Show tables, show create table B. I think they're just both random UUID tables, so it doesn't really matter. Ooh, and I think there's another problem, which is that probably A doesn't have a primary key, does it? It doesn't. So we won't be able to do a lookup into it because it's not indexed. That being said, we could do a lookup into B, or we could just make an index on A. Let's do that. So we'll say create index on A of ID. So A is now going to be indexed on this ID column. And if I wanted to do a lookup join into it, I could say select star from A, join B on A.ID is equal to B dot A or something. And I think hopefully this will make a lookup join. It's making a hash join. I think I can force it just for the purposes of argument. Okay, so this is doing a lookup join. It's saying scan over all of A and look up into B. Okay, so it's the opposite direction, but it doesn't really matter. And if I were to do this, I think that it's very important that we write down the number of bytes that we read in this lookup join to, and not just the scan. And that's implemented by this other file, joinreader.go. And I think hopefully we should find that we're emitting stats, but I just have a feeling we're not. So let's find out. Generate, where's this? Yeah, generate meta. Yeah, so we definitely don't do this, which is not good. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna make that happen. To do add memory and disk usage. This is suspicious, right? This is definitely suspicious. I think we just want to grab this basically. Because I think we should have a fetcher in this join reader thing. And we do it inside of generate meta, right? Can copy this pattern. So the way this works is we're emitting like a bunch of different metadata messages. And right now it looks like we're just emitting one thing. But we maybe want to be emitting a couple of different things. So we'll say if whatever this is doing, I don't really know. We can say trailing meta equals append trailing meta, comma, this whole thing. At the bottom, we'll just be returning trailing meta. But then here we'll say meta is or trailing meta is equal to append trailing meta, comma. We'll make a new one. I guess what we could just say, you know, stats. We'll say meta is equal to address of producer metadata. We'll make a new one and then just reference into it the way that we were doing in the other example. So we set the number of bytes that we read from our underlying fetcher. And we should also be able to set the rows read. I don't think we necessarily have this information yet, but we can certainly add it. You guys, I'm going to be right back. Don't go anywhere. Just be a quick second. Yo, sorry about that. I'm back. Somebody was at the door. I had to talk with them. Is this a customized version of Golang? No, it's just the stock thing. It's got some cool colors that you might like. I think I have don't I have like a command for that? Color scheme? Yeah. So you can check that out. I like this color scheme. It's like pretty nice. But yeah, it's just the stock stuff with some preferences. Do you call customize like changing the preferences? I don't know. It's up to you left here. That all being said, where we left off was that we wanted to try to figure out a way to keep track of the total number of rows that we returned, or that we read, I guess, from the join. So we can do that. I think that should be pretty straightforward. When we go to our fetcher here, we should really be able to, yeah, this looked up row thing, right? So essentially we're iterating through this fetcher, we're checking the rows, and if we see one that's not nil, that means we found one and we can sort of plus some counter. So we can say jr dot rows read plus plus, and we can make a new field for this guy, which is an integer. We'll say rows read is the total number of rows that this fetcher read from disk, something like that. All right, and then when we actually need to go to emit our stats, we can just say jr.rowsread. This does not work for some reason. It's supposed to be an int64. Fine. Make it happen. All right, so that's cool. I guess the next thing then would be, right, the next thing that we were gonna do is looking at like, honestly, I feel like this fetcher should have like a get rows read thing too, but I don't know, it doesn't for some reason. Yo, Tinspin, what's up, man? Send the link. I'll click the link. I'll click the link. We didn't get a chance to do it last time, but I'm feeling a little bit more directionless this time, so we can look at it. Oh yeah, I didn't click it because it has like a sketchy sounding URL. The root cloud store. Root replicates JSON objects async over HTTP. I really like the look of this. This is super cool looking. Async over HTTP across the cluster with guaranteed uniqueness and DNS route for 100% read uptime. Make, find, edit, drop. Insert, select, update, delete. Well, I don't know what any of this stuff is. Yoke. Roll. What's up with these words? This has a really cool look to it, I have to say. It has a very cool look to it. 4 letters. Is this like a, are you trying to like call back to like Urbit or something? I know they like to name all their variables 4 letters long. Is this an Urbit thing? I believe that it's your own source, but I feel like there's this other project that likes to have 4 letter long variable names for everything. This is fascinating. I don't think I quite get it, but it's pretty neat. So you're saying I could just put some stuff, blah. Wow, magic. So you're saying I could just fill up your database just by spamming this thing, huh? I wouldn't do that, but you're saying I could do it, right? Wow. Well, this is cool. I'm gonna have to check this out. The key is now on 3 computers. That's very neat. That's very neat. That's actually very neat. So how come it's not on GitHub? How come it's not on GitHub? How come this stuff isn't on GitHub? Looks complicated. Looks pretty neat though. Tin spin. So I want to add some stuff to this. I would really like this thing to have a timer. Each time that it actually goes and reads stuff from the network, I would very much like if it had a timer, right? It shouldn't be that difficult. I'm actually, with the stat collector when necessary. What does this thing have? Row fetcher stat collector. It's got input stats, start, scan, stall time. Reminds me of the Hungarian variable anecdote from the early Apple days when they had limited variable name lengths, so they ended up generating random names which made the code unreadable, and thus the naming scheme got the nickname Hungarian. You like to use 4 letters. Multiplayer protocol. Pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. You are doing some interesting stuff. I don't think I quite understand it, but it's pretty neat. I very much like your color scheme. I like that quite a lot. Multiplayer online system. Many messages per second. So this is something that you can do for playing games with people or something like that, right? I think it's very funny that you have only 4-letter variable names. That is really making me laugh quite a lot. But this is cool. Technical sales pitch. You can run games with a lot of concurrent users. ADC DAC compression for input over network? Isn't that like more of an audio thing? Doesn't that stand for digital audio? Or digital analog conversion, analog digital conversion? Yeah, Nakama. I'm familiar with Nakama. They actually use CockroachDB under the hood. It's hosted on Raspberry Pis. This is cool, man. It's very, very neat stuff. Where do you find the time to build all of this? I don't know. It's a great question. But it's very neat stuff. I think the trouble with this thing is that the actual weight stats are they're like deep inside of this thing. Like this row fetcher, it has some inner object called KV fetcher, and this is the thing that actually knows, like it's sort of abstracted from the row fetcher whether or not when you call it, it's actually going to fetch stuff from disk. That's all done here. Yeah, this bytes read business, right? I guess we can just kind of make another thing like that that's just, you know, a timer, and we plumb it all the way up. Let's do that. Stopped wasting time. So we're gonna add a little timer, time util dot stopwatch. We'll call it the fetch timer, fetch watch. Fetch watch is used to time the amount, time the duration spent waiting on bytes from KV, the KV layer, we should say. And all we have to do is really say, you know, when we're about to invoke this thing, we say like f dot fetch watch dot start, like so. And then when we probably need a new method called like, you know, get amount of time spent, get fetch duration or something, get bytes read. We'll make it called get KV duration, f dot fetch watch dot elapsed. This returns a time dot duration. Time util, what does this return? Time dot duration. Get KV duration returns the duration spent waiting for bytes. This duration spent in the KV layer. Call it KV, get KV block duration. All right. Don't smoke, drink alcohol, but you had the time to raise a child and learn how to live in the woods, self-sufficient on heat, water, and some food. Wow, that's really cool. I would love to read a blog post about that. I think sustainable living is a really awesome thing. Have you ever seen that blog post about the guy who made this micro hydro plant all by himself? That's one of my favorite blog posts ever. Micro hydro plant. Blog post. How am I gonna find this? Build log. DIY. This is so cool. It's really so cool. This is one of my favorite. I actually saw it on Hacker News. I wonder if I search Hacker News, it'll come up. Micro hydro plant. Hacker News. Ludens.cl. This is it. Okay, so what if I search ludens.cl? This is one of the coolest blog posts ever. You have to check this out. Tinspin or anybody else who's interested in like off the grid. I mean, I've read this thing like several times because I find it so fascinating. But it's just awesome. Like they live in the forest or something. There's some stream nearby and it drops like some number of feet. So they like spent all this effort. They built a little turbine. They made a generator, and I think they like run most of their house off of it just based on, you know, the natural hydro gravity stuff that's like nearby their house. It's just so cool. And there's so many pictures. It's just such an exciting build log of something that's just awesome. Look at this. Look at this. The raw water power. So cool. Anyway, total aside, but it's pretty cool stuff for sure. How come this is only red in this place? I don't quite understand that. Don't quite understand that. Get bytes red. Oh, I see. So I just have to use this thing twice, I guess. That's fine. It's not really that big of a deal. We have to really call this KV blocked NS to be consistent. Okay, so we'll do this. And then I think for the other implementation over here, we've got to say, well, I don't know why this is in a single line. It's like so unreadable and pointless. Then we just have one more, which is setting the KV blocked NS. Should be eventually finished, right? And we'll say tr.fetcher.get KV blocked NS, and this is we have to implement it as well. Get KV blocked NS. All right, it should just be a duration. Get KV blocked duration returns. I don't know why this stuff isn't commented already. It's because it's unexported, so you don't have to comment it. I guess it's pretty self-documenting. This thing is implemented just by one spot. So we've just got to do the same thing here. Get network, get KV blocked duration, time.duration. And so I guess if in the case where we don't have anything initialized, I guess we can just return 0. Otherwise, we'll return rf dot or f dot get KV block duration. So it's just a bunch of plumbing. Kind of boring, but it's going to be cool once we're finished. Dot nanos. All right. So then back in the join reader, which is the third spot that we're supposed to be doing this stuff. We want to do the same thing. So we'll say meta.metrics dot KV block NS equals JR dot fetcher dot get KV block duration dot nanos. Okay. All right. We're making some stuff happen. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Yeah, so I think at this point what we can do is probably, I mean, at this point we can do quite a lot. We can actually even plumb it all the way into the front end at this point, right? We can go to our session details, or is it, no, it's not session details. It's the other one, statement table or something, statements. No, it's statement details. Because there's a whole section in here for various execution stats that we added some to. You see, here's rows read and disk bytes read, and what we can do is now add 3 new things. We can add our, it's really, you just want to say like disk IO time, more or less. Well, it's not exactly accurate is the problem. You have to sort of say KV duration, KV layer duration or something. I don't know. It's unclear to me what to really call this. Hey, Moro Matos, thanks for the follow. And the value is going to be stats.kv. Did this thing not refresh yet? Did I not add it to iStatement statistics? Okay, so there's a little bit more plumbing to do. Fun. More plumbing. We love plumbing on this stream. The pipe? What pipe? Oh. You're talking about the micro hydro. Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's honestly just so cool. So this is part of the data.proto. Where is this thing? Where is this thing? Is it in this? No, I forget what this where is the structure defined? Parse lat. You live in Sweden? So you have a lot of Hydra here? Yeah, I bet. That's awesome. Well, hello from New York. So it's appstats.proto. Doing it all, pipes, digging, designing, welding. Yeah, he does everything. It's super cool. Yo, Awana, I am using... I'm not sure what he's asking. It might be either that or like the fact that I use Golang altogether. But yes, I do use the Vim bindings. Yo, CM Griffin, thanks so much for the raid again, my friend. How's it going? Welcome everybody from Griffin's channel. I hope you guys were doing something super cool. What were you guys working on this time around, friend, on a Sunday night? I hope it was something awesome. Mr. Sir, that is funny. I like the Mr. Sir. In PyCharm, you can do alt plus up or down to function to previous. Oh, I see. I guess you're talking about, you already know that it's a JetBrains thing, but you just wanted to know the key bindings that I'm using. Yeah, for me, I'm just using this GD thing. You know, it's like the Vim bindings, GD, go to definition. Made the rendering better for that Cellular Life game. It now pulses with life eerily. Ooh, that sounds very exciting. I would love to check that out sometime. An eerie life pulsing thing. Yeah, send me that link. I'll throw it up on my channel for people. 10 cubic meters per second. Almost bought an old mill next to my house that burned down. 2 meters fall height. Wow. 4-letter code and protocols. Yeah, exactly. Dude, that would be so cool, Tinspin. This is definitely one of my dreams. If I had a land area with water, I would totally try to follow that guy's blog post, because I just think it's so awesome. Game of Life U. Wow. This is advanced stuff. The goal is simple. Make modifications to a seed. Those modifications determine how things play out. A life score is what you get if your step count is higher than previous players. More active cellules at the end is a tiebreaker. A death score is achieved by having low amounts of active cellules. Less steps at the end is a tiebreaker. Okay, get started. Holy moly. I didn't get a life or death score. Man, this is cool, but I have no clue what's going on. Can I like add stuff here? So it doesn't seem like it's the regular Game of Life thing, right? It's like the shapes are a bit different. BIM. Let's make this way slower. What does a glider look like in Cellular Life? Some trippy stuff, man. Rust WASM in the browser. That's cool. It's a grid cell just rendering a layer on top. Ah, okay, cool. Cool. Wow, this is very neat. Oh, a 4 characters max. Hey, Tinsman, if you're still watching, this guy also uses a 4 character maximum. So in honor of you, I'm gonna use yoke, because I like the word yoke. All right. Well, this is fascinating. I'm gonna have to check this out a little bit more another time. Cool. Cool. So, more improvements of rendering to come. I think the rendering here is pretty nice. It is very, what did you say? It eerily pulses. Yes, it is very pulsy, and it is eerie. It's both. I love it. So, we were doing something a bit more mundane, I want to say. We were searching in our proto buffs for a new spot to add some execution statistics for this database that we're working on. What we have here is some information about the number of bytes read from disk for this query, as well as the number of rows read from disk for this query. And what we wanted to add is the number of nanoseconds blocked on the disk too. I think that's an interesting piece of information to add. And we also eventually want to add the number of bytes and rows read from network, as well as the corresponding duration spent blocked. But we'll get to that next. I guess we just need to add all of these statistics right here down below these ones. And it looks like for everybody we kind of use this numeric stat thing to keep track of that time, even if it's a time quantity and not a random integer quantity. And by the way, CM Griffin G, thanks again for the raid. I really do appreciate it. You guys, if you haven't checked out his channel, it's a really good one. He streams all the time, by the way. I don't know how you do it. You stream all the time. You're always online streaming. And that is impressive. So definitely somebody to look out for. But I guess these latencies, are they in nanoseconds or milliseconds? I don't really know, but I can just add new ones for my quantities, no problem. So we'll call it KV blocked duration, and we'll do the same thing basically for our network bytes. I don't think we're keeping track of network rows yet, are we? Network rows read. We're just keeping track of network bytes read and network blocked nanoseconds. I suppose we should really keep track of network rows read, right? Isn't that interesting information? Is it? I feel like maybe it's not that interesting. I'll leave it out for now. I feel like we might want it, but I don't know. But we'll definitely keep track of the network block duration. And we should be able to plumb this up to the front end pretty quickly, which should be neat. So network blocked duration is going to be, we've got to increment these little protobuf integers. It's always a fun activity for us. Right? So now we just got to regenerate our protobufs here. So this is, we were looking at a protobuf definition, Uger, but in general, we're programming in Go with a little bit of a mix of TypeScript as well for some of the front end stuff that we're doing, but we're very much TypeScript newbies here. So take that or leave that. But this thing is mostly Go. Right now, what we're doing is protobuf is like a serialization format definition language. So what we just did is we recompiled this protobuf definition into Go code so that we can read and write values that contain information about the things that we're trying to serialize, if that made any sense. So what we've just got to do is kind of figure out where we are writing this stuff. It's actually Golang James Harry's, but it is Vim bindings. We just need to remember where the heck we set this stuff on the back end, which to be honest, I don't remember. So I think if I go to the generated code, I should be able to find out, because we can search for the ones that we know we're already writing to. So the rows read numeric stat here. And we can see where we edit it. Looks like over here in this app stats thing. Yeah, so it's just like a big old combiner. We can add a new one. So we're gonna add s.network bytes read.add other.network bytes read. Wait a minute, this is just like a combiner. So presumably this is not actually where we add network bytes in the first place. We also want the KV block duration and the network block duration. This is some really boring boilerplate, I have to say. Maybe there's a faster way to do this, I don't know. But presumably somewhere we're, actually setting this thing, right? It's got to be here. Okay, so this is called record statement. It saves per statement statistics, which is what we're messing with. And it looks like we have this information here in top level query set. So we need one more field. We already added networks bytes read and network block dir. What we also need is the KV blocked dir duration.duration. which is going to be the KV blocked. There is the duration spent waiting on the KV layer to return data. Okay, curious that this is a duration.duration, not a time.duration. I feel like I screwed that up, but that's okay. So we're just still messing with this plumbing, but I think we're getting to the end. So we're gonna say r.stats.network block dir plus equals. I guess it's really this, duration.plusInt from int and stuff like that. We kind of want to copy this. So we're gonna say network or kv block dir equals r.stats.kvblockdir.add. And then this is where we parse the number of nanoseconds that were sent to us over the network by this stats collector thing. So from int meta.metrics.kvblock nanoseconds. Cool. Okay, so not so bad. We already have the same code for the network bytes read. So then we just got to read this thing out, just the same way that we do with rows read, and that's what we were doing in this appsets file. So just 2 more pieces of plumbing, and then I think we should be able to see something on the front end. I think. So network block duration record, and we float 64. How do we turn? I guess we just want to like nanosecondify it, right? So float 64 of s.data.network blocked duration dot nanos. Wait, not s.data. It's actually stat. So s.data is the thing we're writing to, and stats is the thing that we're reading from. So we want to say stats dot network block dir dot nanos. And it's the same for the KV block duration. And it's the same for the network bytes read. All right. I think that that's basically what we need to do. Yeah, there's also this almost equals business. I think we should implement this for kicks. I don't really know what it does, but everybody else seems to do it with their stat, so I think we should too. So we've got to add network block duration, KV block duration, and network bytes read. All right. Okay, I think at this point we can probably recompile this whole thing, and then the backend's going to be serving this information, and we just need to add it to the front end at this point. So if we go now to our statement details page, then I think at this point we should be able to see, hopefully, our KV. No? Maybe it's just the IDE hasn't like noticed that these things changed yet. Huh. Okay, yeah, it's just regenerating this TypeScript file. This is the thing with this big application, is it does take forever to regenerate all of these headers and whatnot. It just takes quite a long time. So I guess that's what's happening right now. But it's absolutely going to be worth it, you guys. It's going to be cool. I am excited about it. I think this is the line that should have done it, right? You see, it's doing like PBJS, writing these protobuf definitions into protos.js. I guess what it didn't do is recompile the JavaScript into TypeScript. That's kind of the thing that's probably missing. But it looks like it finished at this point. So now I think we should be able to see in statement details.
Data banks.
Hopefully.
Data banks.
Yo, Savage Cities, thanks for that follow. Hopefully we'll see our... Come on, little buddy. You can do it. You can do it. Parse this giant TypeScript file. I believe in you. I believe in you. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we have our new fields. We've got KV block duration, we've got network bytes read, and so on and so forth. Okay, cool. So we can say KV layer duration is stats.kv block duration. And we can actually make like bar charts for it and stuff like that. I think I need to give this like a unit too. I need to tell it that it's like milliseconds or microseconds or stuff like that. I think I can use like moment.js for that or something like that, but I'll get to that in a second. For now, let me just get all the raw data in. So I have my KV layer duration and I want my network bytes read and my network duration as well. This is going to be stats dot network bytes read. And down here, I'm going to have network blocked duration. Okay. At this point, I think that if this thing ever finishes compiling, then we can start the database. We can look at the front end, and it should have this extra information inside, which should be kind of neat. Pretty pumped. Socket IO disconnected before completing build lifecycle. I think I don't know what that means, to be perfectly honest, but I don't think it really matters. Yo, Pedro X HP, thank you for that follow. I wanted to give a quick shout out, by the way, if you are enjoying this music, it's this music by this guy Matt Cherney, and it's really cool because it's copyright free music. He makes it available for free for people to put on their streams, and I actually like it. I've listened to a lot of stream music that like I don't really like, but his stuff I really like. So if you do like it, check it out on Spotify. I think I've been saying for a couple streams now I need to put this in my about page because you know, you got to shout out your creators, right? Like if you're using people's music, they're making it for free, you should at least say their name. So I want to put that on my Twitch profile at some point. This thing, I don't even know. Like, what is it doing, my dudes? What is it doing? It's probably doing Webpack. It's usually the answer to this question is probably Webpack. So here I have something called. Oh, do you think like this dashboard thing is like fighting with the thing that's actually with the actual compiler? That's probably what's happening. Let me kill this guy. Yeah, look at that. As soon as I killed that, this thing sort of finished. Oh, and there's a little bit of a problem. So there's a bit of an import cycle, it looks like. It's saying that exec_infra_pb is importing exec_pb, which imports exec_infra_pb. That is trouble. So what did I do? Why did that happen? Presumably it's because I thought it was maybe because I added like a new protobuf definition, or dependency rather, but I don't think I did that. So what is the error again? It's saying that exec_infra_pb imports exec_pb. Is that expected? So if I do grep exec_pb inside of package, import cycles, man, it's the worst. You never want that. You never want that to happen. So I think it's expected that exec_pb is imported by exec_infra, and I think what's unexpected is the opposite. So if I search now for exec_infra inside of package SQL exec_pb, where is that thing? call exec. Call exec pb. I think what's happening is that this last commit that I did that isn't really finished is messing with things. So I think I need to revert that last commit, which should be fine. Let me just make a quick commit for all of this stuff. So I'll say git add sequence. This is also neat. If you have this git number plugin I was talking about, you can also do stuff like this. Like I want to add all this crap without adding any of this. I can say git add and then put, you know, this is like a bash thing, seek. It gives you all the numbers between X and Y. And I can say git add seek 1 through 15 and it's gonna add all these files, which I think is pretty neat. Yo, SVA var Freyer, thanks for that follow. So if I commit this then, I'll just put this as a work in progress. I'm gonna rebase -I. I'm gonna swap this broken commit with the work in progress one that I've got. And then I think I'll make a new branch for this thing that I'm working on. Exec always stats is not really the accurate name of this. That's sort of more related to this broken commit that I don't even want anyway. So I'm gonna do git checkout head tilde, and I'm gonna say git checkout -b. Let's call it like network stats maybe. Okay, and I think this one should probably compile just fine. Let's find out though. That's interesting that this Webpack dev server was like screwing everything up. I don't know why that was the case, but it's good to know that it was happening because this happened to me a couple times before on stream and I wasn't really ever quite sure what to do with it. By the way, you guys, it's really hot out last couple of weeks, at least here in New York. One thing that I've been doing as of today, cucumber water. It's brilliant. This is like the best thing ever. You just take your big jug of water, you stick some cucumbers in it, and then it's like extra hydrating, extra delicious. I highly recommend the cucumber water if you're not already doing that with your life. There's this really great... I can't resist this. I'm sorry, but I can't resist this. There's this guy, cucumber water rap guy. You gotta check this out. I'm just gonna play this.
The cucumber, or as they call it in Jamaica, cucumba. Cucumba. Vitamins, minerals, very high number. Silica, hair and nails get longer. Other vitamins make your bones them stronger. Anti-wrinkle make you look younger. 95% water. Kidney cleanser, great hydrator. Detox, fiber, good regulator.
You like this?
Your body good things. Don't be a traitor. Get the cucumber. Cut it in a slice.
I think this is the
jug of
dopest
water
thing.
Overnight. You know what you get for a fraction of the price? Energy drink full of electrolyte. Raw inside.
And it's so accurate. Like cucumber water really does make it.
Juice. Another
Make the water
slice
better.
on your eyes, take away the dryness, revitalize. Oh yes. One thing I have left.
I hate these
Cucumber
YouTube
can also help with
suggestions.
bad breath. Wash away the bacteria
Like
that
you can't
cause
even
the
see the
odor.
guy.
Cucumber water instead of soda. A Maccabee Medical Monday. Cucumber.
Anyway, I love that. I think that's just the best. But back to the regularly scheduled programming content. Apparently we have to recompile the whole world when we change branches for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why. The only thing I know is that cucumber water is really good. You really drink a lot of water while streaming too. Like I feel like this was full when I started. Now it's like half empty, or less than half empty, honestly. It's like mostly done. Gotta stay hydrated. Okay, this is the last package. This always takes way too long. Come on, little buddy, you got it. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're gonna start our server. Something did not go too well. That's unfortunate. Let's see what went wrong here. Cockroach data bugs, cockroach standard error.
The data bank's too big. I have to narrow down the search. How are you gonna do that? By guessing.
Okay, so it looks like, oh yeah. So I made this stopwatch and I never initialized it. Okay, that's very easy to fix. And hopefully it isn't gonna be too bad. Yo, Boca Soto, thanks for that follow. Really appreciate it. So this is KV Fetcher.
The data bank's too big.
And Samuta, thank you for the follow
search.
as well.
How are you gonna do that? By guessing.
So it's line 120. Hello.
Computers hooked into over 1,000 data banks throughout the world.
Gamped 1994, thanks for that follow. Appreciate that. We just had to initialize this thing. Why is this? What is going on? I feel like something got really out of whack with my editor. It's like really having a bad time in life right now. Sometimes things just don't go your way, you know? Sometimes things are stuck indexing for super long. There we go. Okay, back to normal. So when we create this thing, we should just initialize it right here, right? New KV Fetcher, that's done here. So we're just gonna say, what was this thing called? It was called fetch watch. Say fetch watch is equal to time util dot new stopwatch. I guess this thing needs to be a pointer as well. All right. Let's do it again. Hopefully this time it's all gonna be happy. A lot less to compile this time too. We didn't change any proto buffs. We didn't change anything. We just changed one little baby thing. And I think the first thing that we're going to want to check is just whether or not we're getting any statistics in these fields. And I think we can do that by probably just by requesting this proto endpoint right from, I think it's this guy. Currently the database is still off, so it's not going to do anything. But as soon as we finish compiling this thing, we can request this. And right, maybe it's like this statements one, and it's going to give us the information that we added, hopefully. Don't we also need this make UI watch thing on? I think we do. All right, let's see what happens now. Okay, that seems a lot happier. We can go over here. So here's our statements page. And does it have extra information? Yes, so it has KV block duration, it has network bytes read, has network block duration. This is very suspicious, I do have to say. This giant number here does not seem right. But yeah, this seems really messed up. Oh, the reason is probably that we never reset it. That seems very wrong. Or maybe since it's in nanoseconds, maybe this is actually fine. Like maybe we're storing all of these other durations as like fractional seconds. Let me figure that out real quick, because it would be sort of awkward if we did nanoseconds in one spot and fractional seconds in another spot. It sort of seems like we're doing fractional seconds. Oh man, that's so annoying. I don't really want to go back and change all this stuff. Maybe we don't have to. Let's just go to the statements page and see if the rendering is sort of working all the way up to the top. Okay, why is that not working then? Do we have something else that's sort of crashing us here? Yes, we do. So join reader 595 is now having an issue. I changed too much at once without writing any tests. That's what happens, boys and girls, when you do this. So this is failing for some reason, huh? Maybe the fetcher has not been initialized yet. I didn't even know that that was possible, that you could not have an initialized fetcher. But we'll just wrap this with the conditional if jr.fetcher is not equal to nil. I suppose you could ask for this metadata and nothing's happened, and then everything kind of blows up at the end. Is that really expected? I feel like it is. I feel like we have this similar thing in the other similar part of the code. This is sort of the thing that does lookup joins or nested loop joins, depending on your preferred flavor. But this is the other one is kind of the scan spot. And the scan spot, out of curiosity, do we have a check like that? Doesn't look like we do. But I guess the difference is that. What is the difference? Why would that be the case? We initialize it up here in new join reader. So I wouldn't really expect it ever to be nil, to be honest. Perhaps that's not the thing that is then causing us to have an issue. Is it perhaps? Ah, okay. Well, big problem is that I am making something that's always gonna fail. So I never initialized this metrics field. So I need to do that for sure. Producer metadata. Metrics edition. This grossness is just due to the way that protobuf tends to generate these nested structs. Why we have these weirdly named things with underscores and stuff like that. Okay, try again. Okay. I'm hopeful that this time we'll get some good results. Let's refresh our page. So here's our nice admin UI page. Let's make a session and do some stuff in it, just so we have some data. Maybe we can do select count star from a table. So this read 100,000 rows, and we should see that in our statements page. Here's our statement, select from A. Here's our execution stats. And so we see that we had 100,000 rows read, 5.3 megabytes read from disk. No time spent in the network or bytes read for the network. Which makes sense because we just have a single node cluster. And this number is pretty large because it's nanoseconds. And I guess everybody else is expecting. Let's actually fix that to like render as seconds or something like that. I think we should be able to do that on the front end without any trouble. So if I go to my statement details page, there's this format thing. And I think what I want to do is I want to make yeah, see, I've got a duration. So I've got a duration. So duration takes a number of nanoseconds and gives me a string. So that's exactly what I want to use here. I'll just pass in this duration flag formatter for both of the spots here. Yo, Hippo Buckles, great name, and thanks for that follow. Look at this, this is full stack, baby. We are so full stack, it's out of control. Okay, so if I refresh now, theoretically, maybe it'll give me like a nice quantity. Yo, wait. Okay, this is just looking very wrong. 662,000 seconds. That's clearly false. So I guess I screwed something up somewhere. I don't know yet how I could have screwed that up, but it's definitely screwed up. So what's the deal? What's the deal? Let's find out. It's got to be something to do with units, right? Like I calculate this duration by using this stopwatch thing, which I mean, I trust this thing's gonna work. Unless I don't stop the fetcher watch thing. I think I do. I mean, if I refresh this, is it gonna like increase in size or something? I don't think so. not this one. It stays the same. So I don't think it's that I'm not stopping the stopwatch. I'm pretty sure I stop it like basically right below where I started. And this can never like error out too quick or something. So this is sort of safe. It must be some mix up with units. I think that's gotta be the answer. So here I just pass it up the stack. Here's my table reader. I asked for the number of nanoseconds. I set it here. And then where do I reread this thing? So here I say add duration.from in64. This has got to be wrong. This is a number of seconds. Okay, so this is the issue right here. I'm turning nanoseconds into seconds without any kind of... Yeah, so this really needs to be like duration dot. What is this duration? Why, how come we don't use time dot duration? What is this util duration? What is the point of this? I don't understand this even a little bit. This should be time dot duration. That will fix all of these issues. I don't know what duration dot duration is, but I don't like it, and it's not treating me nicely. Is there no way to add two durations? Or can I just plus equal? I feel like I can probably plus equal them, right? No, I can't do that. What is the deal with this? What is a time dot duration? And it's just an int64. It represents the elapsed time between two instances of int 64 nanosecond count. That's exactly what I want. So all I have to do is time dot duration it. And then I think this should all be Gucci. We'll do the same thing down below here. Down below, we'll say time dot duration wrap meta dot metrics dot network blocked nanoseconds. All right. I think this will be better. I think this will be better. Why does it have to recompile the front end when I made that change? Like, what possible reason did it have to do that? I don't like it. I find it disrespectful. And I'm mad. I'm mad. But this, I think overall, let's see. I guess I have to kill this dashboard thing again, right? It's giving me a lot of trouble, this dashboard. But I think once we figure this out, it's probably going to be it for us. I also don't understand, like, what the hell is this? What's going on with this? This happened to me last time. Like, this terminal has a life of its own. I don't get it. It's something to do with the standard out. Oh, it's like my scroll wheel is printing a bunch of info to this terminal. It's like it gets all screwed up. It needs to be reset. That fixes it. But yeah, I'm hopeful that once this is done, we'll have some nice seconds to display on this web page, and then we can call it a day. I think we've made a decent amount of progress. You know, we had like kind of a long false start looking at these, trying to explain, you know, have the what's going on? Can't have nanos. This is a time dot duration, so this is just, you can just float 64 it. You can just int 64 it, right? No, it's got to be a float 64. I mean, anyway, we had this sort of long false start about trying to, you know, display these physical plans in the web UI, which is just not something that realistically was an accomplishable goal. I think it's a large goal. It's also kind of tied up into something else that's going on in the code base. That's something that I was explaining earlier, which is that, like, right now there's these two phases. There's like the logical plan creation phase and the physical plan creation phase. And there's sort of a in progress work to move that physical plan creation phase all the way up to the top. So it happens at the same time with the logical plan creation. But right now, only like half the time we do that. So I was sort of caught in between two worlds, and that was feeling painful and wrong. Felt like I really should have just waited. So that's what I decided to do. I sort of aborted that attempt. And what we did instead is just add a couple more execution statistics here, which I think, I mean, it's, you know, it's fine. It's like mildly less ambitious than what we started off doing, but you know, that's all right. Sometimes that happens. So we start this, it's so funny. This, like, the terminal gets all messed up if you kill the Webpack dashboard halfway through. I guess it's because it's in some weird mode displaying all this ASCII characters and stuff like that. But point is, let's run this count one more time. Refresh our statement statistics. There we go. So we have, this is cool. We see that we spent 77 milliseconds reading from the KV layer for a query that was 86 milliseconds in total. So that tells you something. It tells you that you spent most of your time reading from disk, which I guess is a good thing. And you can infer all sorts of other stuff, like how much time was spent in the execution engine. I think this is nice. People are going to like this. But yeah, I think overall, this probably does it for me, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out today. I had a really fun time. I hope you had a fun time too. Doing some programming on a Sunday night before work, in my case. Tomorrow begins again. I'm not looking forward to work, to be honest. I'm a little bit like, want a vacation. But if that's your state too, I wish you a very good week up next, and a good night. Kind of want to find someone to raid. I think we should... This person raided me the other night. Maybe I should raid them back, since we got this nice raid from CM Griffin G, which I really appreciate. Maybe we should pay it forward and raid this person. I think we should do that. Let's make it happen. So we're gonna raid BJ Kegley. So this guy raided me the other night. I think he's doing TypeScript stuff. He seems like a nice guy. So say hello, spam the ancient LDB emote if you've got that one, but if not, just be nice. And in any case, I stream every Friday 3 p.m. and every Sunday 6 p.m. So I'll see you again one of these times. Thanks everybody for the resubs, follows, and everything. And until next time, friends, see ya.